doing it for us. Hopefully the hours.
You know you're still set.
We have floating spaces, so it doesn't really matter.
Oh, okay.
Come first serve.
Oh, you're a contractor.
Yeah. Thank you.
Paper copy of the email from yesterday.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. I call to order the meeting of the Manassas Park Governing Body for June 15th, 2021. First, we have approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda? Okay, hearing none, do we have a motion to approve?
Jeanette, can we change the VRE green wall?
Oh, that's right. Yes, thank you. Thank you for the reminder. We will be moving 8C up, 8E, excuse me, couldn't read that. 8E up to 8A, and everything else would just move down one. Okay. It now becomes an amended agenda. Do you accept that amendment who moved it? Did you move?
I haven't, but so moved.
Okay. So moved, okay. Okay, thank you, Laszlo. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Next, we have our moment of silence, and Councilmember Javed, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge of allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, there's two opportunities for public comment this evening. The first is general public comment time. We have received one email so far. Do we have any other emails that have come in? Okay. Okay. This is from Mr. Mike Smith, and Mr. Smith writes, I saw the council recently voted to approve Councilperson Hampton's recommendation for a community maintenance working group. Thank you for this vote. Much good work has already been done. However, there is still much to be done. In the past week, a resident commented on social media out of frustration that contractors were coming onto her street and dumping trash around the fire hydrant. Another resident reached out about an abandoned house on his street with a hole in the roof. According to this resident, the house had been abandoned for 7 years and the city has not done anything. Another house was identified with over 20 used tires piled up in the front yard. On our own street, we've recently seen a large number of gasoline tanks being stored in the street in an unsafe manner. I'm not sure what the solution is to these problems of blight and trash. However, our homes and streets are the first things visitors see in the community. Hopefully, the working group can come up with some good suggestions to improve them. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Okay, is there anyone signed up to make public comment here in person? Okay. Okay, seeing no one and hearing no one, we will move on to 3A. Next item is a continuation of the public hearing for the FY22 taxes and fees. This public hearing has been continued from June 8th to give the public more time to comment and to think about the proposed solid waste fees.
Yeah, that was exactly it. I don't really have anything else to add except I just put on again for reference the current rate on the top, what we originally advertised on the top right, and then the new proposed trash or solid waste fees just for reference. But again, that was the reason why we continued the public hearing, just so that people could have more time to think about this one, since it was different from what was advertised.
Okay, thank you. Does the governing body have any comments, last minute comments or questions that you would like to ask? Anything?
Is this the appropriate time to ask about the park senior facility? Did you have a chance to meet with them?
No, not meet with them.
Okay.
We're going to inform them, but I'm not sure what a meeting would be about, because it's really just it's a notification.
Okay.
Right? There's no negotiation unless I don't even know what we could negotiate. It's just a fee.
I mean, just out of courtesy, let them know that it's coming.
Yeah, we're definitely going to notify them. Absolutely. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've already worked on our messaging. There's just for situational awareness. There's couple other blocks that have been charged dumpsters that should have been charged curbside. So the treasurer's informing them that you're getting charged the correct amount curbside. So there's a lot of
Notification
Correct.
will have to go around to specific groups.
Okay.
Questions? No? Okay. Is there anyone of the public who has signed up to make public comment on the public hearing? Okay. Seeing no one and hearing no one, do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Public hearing is closed. Thank you. Okay, there are no recognitions, no information. Moving on to our presentation. Urban entitlement designation. We're fortunate to have with us this evening Ms. Joan Duckett and Mr. Billy Lake. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you for the flyers that you had sent to us in both Spanish and English. That's very helpful. Thank you.
I'm Bill. I'm the director, and that's Joni. She's the assistant director, but she's the one that runs the office. What happened was, every 3 years with HUD, we have to, if we have a cooperative agreement with cities or other jurisdictions, we have to see about renewing them, seeing if anything changes. So because of that, and there was sent to, is it Lana? She said, well, why don't you speak before city council so they can kind of understand? So that's what I'm going to talk about today. And I'm also going to talk about some of the programs that we administer for both the park, the city, and the county. And we need to get the city and the park more involved so that we can help the residents of those areas. Okay, just hit enter, I think.
You can hit right.
Right. Okay, it doesn't that. Okay. So basically what happened was in 1992, it was a couple of years ago, whenever I was a lot younger, we became what's called an urban entitlement, and it was due to population. To be an urban entitlement, you have to have a population of at least 200,000. For a city, you have to have a population of 50,000. So whenever the park gets a population of 50,000, you can apply to HUD for funding as an entitlement city. Until that happens, the only way that funds, these type of federal funds that I'm going to talk about, come to the park is through a cooperative agreement, and that's what we're talking about every 3 years. The first year, we didn't have any agreements with anybody, but the second year was the first time that we entered into an agreement with the park and the cities, and basically what that meant was that we could take the population of the city and the park and add it to the counties for our total entitlement, how much we receive. And the way that we do it with how much money goes to the park and the city and the county is based upon population, which I think almost everything we do whenever we're working with other jurisdictions, that's what they do. So even though we work with the city and the park and projects in those areas, the county, because we're the entitlement jurisdiction, we're the ones that basically have the final say on, because if we do something wrong, it comes to the county, it doesn't come to the park or the city. So that's the reason why we had the final say on what happened. So in order to get this money, you have to do what's called a 5-year consolidated plan. And what that is, that's a collaborative process whereby citizens, nonprofits, and other governmental entities discuss all of the things that we can do with these federal dollars. One of the most important thing to know is with these federal dollars, it has to benefit lower moderate income. But with CDBG especially, you can use it for a number of things. And we'll go into some of those that you can use the money for. So we have to prioritize what we want to fund for the next 5 years. And then with that, every year we have to have an action plan of what we're going to do to try to achieve those goals. So every time we do this, it has to be approved by our Board of County Supervisors. Whenever it's in draft form, we do send a copy to the city. Usually, I think it goes to the clerk, right? And maybe the city manager. Right? That's what it's supposed to happen. Anyway, and they get it, and then if they want to, they can share it with your board. It also is on our website for comment, and they usually, I think it's 30-day comment period for all of those. So with this 5-year plan, we're able, by statutory regulations, to fund what's called Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, which is really hard to say real fast, Home Investment Partnership, HOME, and emergency solution grants. The emergency solution grants are used to fund all of the shelters, including SERVE, which is in the city, because they serve the whole area. With our home investment partnership funds, all of that money goes towards first-time homebuyer program that we administer for both the park, the city, and the county. And the community development block grant, that can be used for a whole bunch of different things. The largest one that we use the funds for is it's called
Neighborhood Housing Rehabilitation.
I call it the rehab program, but it's got a fancy name. But basically, that program, we're helping owners that own their home that need repairs. And those repairs can be something as simple as energy repairs. And if they're energy repairs, it's a grant. So if we're putting a roof on the house, if we're putting insulation, if we're putting windows and doors and all those things, locks, all that's a grant. But if we're gonna redo your bathroom or redo your kitchen and give you that type of thing, those would be a loan. But it's not payable until you sell your home and you just pay the principal. So that's the best deal in town. Also, a grant are all of your appliances, because all the appliances would be energy efficient appliances. So this is a bunch of stuff. I'll go very fast through this. Our budget, we have 27 people in our office, but we only have 4 people that administer all the programs that you're talking about here. We administer the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program, and that's where most of our staff are. We have like 2,000 vouchers that we administer for the county. The vouchers that you get, you work through the city, and that comes through the Virginia Housing, for VHGA, that's Virginia Housing now. And that's where that funding comes from. Our funding for our vouchers come directly from HUD. So that just tells you all the stuff that we've had and our CARES Act that we had. And so this year, I don't know if it's good news or bad news, but we got almost 10 million extra dollars this year. And it's a pain to try to spend the money. It was very easy to spend the money whenever the virus first happened and everybody, but we're still administering programs to help people, such as right now we're doing a program that's to help with mortgage assistance and utility bills. We'll pay arrearages plus 6 months consecutive payments. The problem is most of the people that lost their jobs due to COVID, now they're back at work, or their household income from the time they lost their job to now, their income has not gone down, it's gone up. So a lot of people we find are not eligible for the program anymore. Whenever we were doing rental, these people, they had no breath. I mean, let's see, from July until December, they spent over close to almost $3 million. And that's a lot of money for rental assistance. So that's just telling you what all that is. So the federal money that we get, one is the Housing Choice Voucher Program, as we talked about. We have almost 2,000 people there. We have a waiting list now of 614. Our waiting list last opened in 2010. So that's a long time ago. And originally they had almost 10,000 people on the waiting list. They opened it for 2 weeks. We will not be able to open our waiting list until we are able to serve people on our waiting list within 1 year. So we usually serve about 100 a year. So it's going to be at least 6 years probably before we open up our waiting list again. With the Community Development Block Grant, you have a flyer there that's about the Neighborhood Housing Rehabilitation Program. That's owner-occupied rehab. We do a transitional housing program for people that are homeless. We let them, we give them housing for 2 years and offer case management services for them to get on their feet. We also monitor 50 properties a year that are affordable housing proffers. Basically what happened is whenever we give money to like a nonprofit, and they want to purchase a property to be used for affordable housing, we have to monitor that every year to make sure the people living in the house are low or moderate income and that the house passes what we call housing quality standards. So that's what we have to monitor. We do competitive applications. We don't do it for the city, for the park, because the amount is so low that we get, and we can show you how much you get every year. But we do it for the city. So even if the park, a nonprofit in the park, or a governmental entity wanted to do some kind of project and say it involved the city and the county and the park, you could make application for that, but you just have to show us number-wise how many people in the city you'd serve and how many in the county you'd serve, and we could pay for what it would cost for those city and county residents. We also do human rights for fair housing testing. The last one was last year, was it 2020? This year, for those people there with COG, you might know, we entered into what's called an analysis of impediments to fair housing, but it's a regional approach. So it's all of Northern Virginia, and I think there's 2 counties in Maryland that are part of this. What they're doing is they're doing an analysis to figure out what are regional problems. So they'll look at the park, the city, and the county to find out if there are any problems, and then are some of these problems also problems that are regional, that affect all of us? Because most of the time they do sometimes. So they're going to be looking at that. That test is supposed to be done by the end of this year, right? We work with Cooperative Extension, and we provide them money to offer classes, and I think the city is a part of that, right? The city, yeah. So people that need budget counseling, credit counseling, or for our first-time home buyer, there are home buyer classes, and Cooperative Extension does those classes. And we also fund the Department of Social Services for homeless transportation. So we help with the homeless. I think they get $40,000 a year to help transport people for medical or whatever reason that they need. For the Home Investment Partnership, that's Joni's thing because she started doing that whenever she was working as a nonprofit. But that program, they give 23 to 33% of the sales price. So the maximum is 300 and what?
Maximum sales price?
No, yeah, sales price.
361,000.
So that's the maximum sales price. So you can take 23% of that, and that's how much we would pay. That's a pretty good deal. And what happens is 20% goes as the down payment, and 3% goes for customary closing costs. So that people don't have to pay that insurance. That's basically the reason. If your income is 60% or lower of area median income, that's the ones that get 33%, and the majority of families that we've been serving have been in that capacity. Let's see, then we have what's called CHODOs, Community Housing Development Organizations, and what they do is they create affordable housing. So in the county right now, and for the city and the park, the only one that I'm aware of is Good Shepherd?
Good Shepherd Housing Foundation and
Pathway Homes. And Pathway Homes, if you're not aware of that organization, they work a lot in Northern Virginia, but they work with people with developmental disabilities and disabilities. That's what they specialize in. And the other Catholics for Housing, they don't have a specialty.
Good Shepherd.
Good Shepherd, they don't have a specialty. Okay. Oh, that's all that CARES Act. That's state, and with the state money, right now we got what's called chitty money, and I'm saying it was like chitty money, Community Housing Development Initiative money. That was over 2.5 million, and what that money we did, it came basically through the Community Services Board, and they couldn't do anything with it, so they said, hey, Bill, y'all do this, could you do it? And like a fool, we said yes. And so we have an agreement with the state, and we were able to get a nonprofit to basically create affordable housing, and so they have purchased 11 properties. See, I have to always ask, 11 properties. One of the properties is for people with...
Well, they're all with developmental disabilities
but
from the...
two of them are special.
We have done ADA compliant.
Right.
One is for sensory.
Right, that's sensory. And the other is the ADA compliant. So we have two of them for that. And then to help pay for that, because they bought the properties with this money, then to help with the rent for the people, we have this state rental assistance program that we administer. And so we help pay the family's rent that's living in the property. So normally with the Housing Choice Voucher, you pay 30% of your income towards rent and utilities. So whatever the difference is there, we would pay that to the landlord. So that's a wonderful program. That program's not in, we don't get any county general funds. Just so you know. The only one that we get county general funds, it's less than 1% goes towards my salary. And the reason why is because we're federally funded, and some of the stuff they make me do, it doesn't fit with what the federal government says, so I can't charge my time to it, so that's the reason why. So we've made some informational flyers for you that we hope that you can use for your constituents. What we would also suggest is that you put that information, and if you need it in a PDF or one of those kind of things, to put it on your website so that your residents know. One of the other things that I think the city did once is, I don't know, do y'all do your own utility bills here? So they put the flyers in people's utility bills to make them aware of the program, because the problem is most of the people, if they see something, they're not going to go to the Prince William County website to find out what's happening in the park. They're going to go to your website. They're going to ask you about things. So that could help boost the number of people to be served, especially with the rehabilitation program. Let's see, set up a link. Oh, yeah, you can set up a link if you want to our website for people that need that information. And also for this one that we're doing for mortgage assistance. If you want, you can hook it right up to ours, and then people can apply right online for that program, for the mortgage assistance. This is all the money. Okay, so that was all that CARES Act money. So you can tell I didn't see all these things. So are there anything about any of these programs that you need more information about? We printed out like the jumbo, so that you can read it at your leisure. Okay. But I know you didn't want to stop probably and go through every one of these slides.
Okay, yeah, well.
That was the reason.
We really appreciate that. We appreciate the complexity and how complete the presentation is.
It is complex.
It is, and we appreciate the humor too. Yeah, very much. Very enjoyable presentation.
But I've worked for the county for over 42 years. I've realized you have to have a sense of humor to stay that long.
Yes. Well, yes, we would like to perhaps move into some questions.
Sure.
Let me start out. As I understand it, the CDBG competitive funding allocation does not have a set aside for Manassas Park.
Correct.
Because there's not enough funding.
Correct.
How is that determined? Is that through population, or is that a formula?
Right, it is. Do you know how much it is for the city of the park? It's not on that disc, is it? Anyway, so yes, it's done by Weldon Cooper population estimates.
Okay.
And that's how it's done. And I want to say, for the whole, she's going to look it up on her computer.
I know we're accustomed to having Weldon Cooper do the population.
And that's what we use also.
My question is it because we fell below a certain threshold?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
So like, if we get $1 million, first off, we take off our admin, and then whatever's left. Then we use the Weldon Cooper formulas for the city, the county, and the park to figure out how much does the county get, the city, and the park. So what happened is, because the park's population is low in relation to the counties, they don't get as much of that pot. And so in trying to use that money, if we put, say, $5,000 in the competitive, we may not have anyone apply.
Okay.
So what we have done with the money that for the park and the majority of the money for the city is we've put it into the housing rehabilitation program.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense now. It's just too small to be significant.
And so what happens is, we used to, years and years ago, like say you had a pot of $50,000. If you didn't use the 50, you lost it, kind of a thing. What we do now, because we have money, if a person applies, we're going to serve them if they're in the city, the park, or the county, because we just decided, look, we used to keep it separate. We just pool it all together, so it's one project. So if we had 15 people from the city apply and 1 from the county, we just pooled all the money together and we took care of the 15 and the 1 from the county.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
So on the original HUD grant amount, and they've since changed it because they made an error, and I can't get to that because it's on the W drive. But originally the allocation for the park on CDBG was $419. Okay. And then for the home program, which is the first time homebuyer program, is $22,360,000. So as Bill said, if your communities know that these programs are available, and we have 5 projects for Manassas Park in the rehab program, we will fund 5 projects, whatever amount it takes.
Even though it's a lower
Even though
dollar
it's a
amount.
lower dollar. So they have the ability to get as much money as they need under the program regulations, not restricted to that $68,000.
I'm going to tell you a story. You wanted to laugh.
So we really need to get the word out.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that is where, honestly, it falls short, is getting the word out to your communities.
So humor, there was a home in the city of Manassas that was falling down, and it was in the hysterical district. Well, you know what that means. If you use federal dollars and with historic properties, you have to bring it up to what the state preservation, SHPO, State Historic Preservation Office says it has to be. We spent over $500,000 on this one house. So if we can spend $500 in the city, we could spend $500 in the park.
Absolutely. Laszlo?
Yeah, because
Does
they don't
the-
get that kind of money either.
Does the homeowner have to apply, or can the city apply on behalf of
The
the home?
homeowner has to apply, yeah.
That's what I.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
because there's a lien on the property for some of the renovations that we're doing, and that's the reason why. Now, I will tell you that we're working with one right now that the county was going to condemn their property. And social services were going to remove their children, including an elderly grandmother, because of the condition of the property.
Oh, wow.
So we basically strong-armed them, saying, you can do this, but then you have no place for your family and no place to live. So we're paying to put them up in a motel while we're doing the renovations to the home
Yourselves,
ourselves.
with the owner's approval, or?
Yes, but he agreed because he realized he was going to lose his children. I mean, the county has a development services division. I don't know if y'all have something like that, but anyway, they were going to condemn the property because it wasn't,
They also.
by code, it wasn't habitable. And they had children living in there, and that's whenever DSS got involved. And then there was a grandmother that was living in a house that had no heat and that kind of thing. So we just had to present the evidence to him, and we have worked with this gentleman before, so we had to say, look, you got to be out of the house. You can't come and mess with the contractor. So we had a whole lot of caveats to get through, but hopefully it's going to work for him. We're going to the house this Thursday to do an inspection, so hopefully it'll work out fine.
Okay. I think Councilmember Hampton has a question.
Yeah, yes. Regarding the housing rehabilitation program, how long is the process for someone to get approved, and what does the process look like? How hard of a process?
Well, we don't have a waiting list right now.
Okay.
So basically, as soon as they come in, something can be done with them. There are verifications that we need to have provided, it is a federal program. So we've got to verify that you're a US citizen. We have to verify that Social Security numbers. We have to verify income. And the residents, normally we verify because we'll look it up on your all's records, to verify that they're the owner and stuff like that. The eligibility of that part takes a very short period of time. What takes the time is then going out to the home and doing an assessment with the homeowner of what needs to be done, and then doing what's called a work write-up of the items that we're going to have a contractor bid on.
Okay.
That, I would say, is a good 2 to 3 weeks. And then we have to bid the job. That's another 2 weeks. And then it's usually 2 weeks after that before construction can begin.
That's actually not too bad. That's
No,
less than 2 months.
Yeah, 2 months. And then usually I think most of the contracts are 60 or 90 days for completion.
Thank you.
Do you have a follow-up?
No.
Okay. Councilmember Moore, do you have a question?
Well, follow up with Councilmember Hampton's about the rehabilitation program. So you have to income qualify?
Yes,
or
sir.
Do you know what the levels are? Yeah.
So it is, all of these programs are federal, so they're based on income limits, based on household size. and they must be at or below 80% of AMI.
80%.
On your flyer, you will
There is
see that
income
for a
levels.
family of 4, I believe it's like
74.
74.1, I believe. Yes, I think.
That's the only one I remember,
And that's
74 something.
effective June 1. HUD is the one who sets those limits. So that is the major part of the eligibility, and that their property is owner occupied, and that they meet the other program requirements. And typically it is about 2 months to get them to the point of where we're ready to roll with the contract. The contract agreement is between the homeowner and the contractor. We are actually the bank. We do the inspections, we work with the contractor, we work with the homeowner. We are the liaison between them, we do the inspections, we release the funds. So a lot of times the holdup is getting the application into our office and getting it approved. It's a lot of information, but we have to have a lot of information because it's a HUD-funded program. So, some people don't want to give you all that information and some people do. But, the benefit at the end for the paperwork that we need, it far exceeds what we're asking for.
That's what we try to stress. And a lot of times for elderly, it's a little bit more difficult because they don't want to lien on the property because they want to give the home to their children. And so it's basically a counseling with the family, the entire family, to explain, we're doing this so that mom and dad have a place to live, a safe home to live in. And whenever they do pass, once they're both gone, because of the improvements to the home, you will get more money out of this home.
Right.
So that lien is a second deed of trust on the property.
Right.
So if there's a first trust and a second lien currently on the property, we pay that second lien off and include it in our deed of trust. Because the county has to be a second lien position. And so it's a 30-year deferred deed of trust, no payments, no interest. We have some stipulations and guidelines on that. So has to remain their primary residence for the entire 30-year period. They cannot refinance or cash out. The only refinance or subordination we allow is if they refinance for a lesser interest rate on their first trust and they lower their payments and it's more affordable for them. We also, if they change ownership, they would have to repay the money, and if they moved out of the property and rented it, they would have to repay the money.
And this also applies for the energy efficiency rehab
So
work,
there are some
like windows.
there are some required items that we have, and that's your energy efficient, as well as there's an age limit on your roof, your HVAC system, your windows, insulation. We have found, it's been a while since we've done one in the park, but what we found in the park was, in the original section, was the insulation was very inadequate. And so, and ADA requirements and things like that, those are required. And so they are a grant. They are not part of the lien. Our average rehab is about $86,000 per household.
So we're going in and making it so that it's a habitable home with all the energy efficiencies that they could possibly have, and hopefully lower their utility bills also, and with the water.
Our worst enemy right now is do-it-yourself.
Sure.
That is our worst
Because
enemy.
everybody
right now.
thinks that we're doing a remodeling
We're not
project.
remodelers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're not tearing out all the walls in your
No,
home and
no.
giving you a,
We're not-
see-through. We're not doing that.
And it has to be a county approved contractor. It has to be one of your
they're
contractors.
approved county
You have a
contractors,
list of
correct.
contractors.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Vice Mayor Banks?
First of all, Mr. Lake, thank you for the presentation. My first question is, this is a lot of great information. Can you make this electronically available for us?
We can send
I
it
can send
to,
it to all of you, yeah.
Thank you. Also, in regards to the neighborhood housing rehabilitation program, you mentioned that it is income-based for low and moderate income persons. And there's an AMI or calculation in this. What is the definition of area? Is that just for Manassas Park, or is it for?
no, it's not. If you, on those handouts, the one-page handouts that are one side English and one side Spanish that you have, they have what those HUD-approved area median income levels are. And we're part of the Washington metropolitan area. So they take into account all of Northern Virginia and DC.
Okay, so
we're
that's
good in
really
that.
good.
That's good. because that's a higher level than it might be for the income level in the park, for instance.
Okay. Thank you. And also you mentioned an extra 10 million, my ears perked up on that, due to COVID.
Yeah.
Does that affect the funds available for Manassas Park citizens that apply?
No, because that money, well, some of the money that we get, like if it was community development block grant funds and it was COVID related, yes, that's for the city and the park. And so what we did, that's whenever we developed the program to help with people, originally, people that had rent and mortgage and utilities. That was how it was originally set up. And then whenever in December, that's whenever we ran out of the state money that we got, then we said, oh, the state can now do it because there was another pot of money that came in. The state was doing a program. There's no sense in the state doing a program and we doing it. So we'll continue with the mortgage. So that's what we're continuing to do.
Okay.
So those, yes. Then with the other money, the newest money that's come through, which is
ARPA?
Yeah, that one.
ARPA.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
ARPA.
American Rescue.
That one, the American Rescue Program. With that one, we're having money come in, but it's not designated to the Prince William area. It's directed to Prince William County. And so with that one, I know that for the county is supposed to get a whole bunch of money. I think probably the cities are too in the park. I have no idea. But with ours, we have received notification. We have a new program called Emergency Housing Vouchers, and we're getting 53 of those, and they're to help with homeless. I think it's homeless, one-time homeless, at risk of homeless, and then fleeing domestic violence, sexual abuse, trafficking, and all that kind of stuff. That group are the people that would be eligible for these vouchers. These vouchers are not off our waiting list. They're coming to us, and they'll be coming through the continuum of care. And so most of y'all, I hope, know about the continuum of care. They are basically the organization, the nonprofits that work with your homeless. So they will determine that they meet the definition of homeless, and they will refer them to our office, and we will give them a voucher for them to look for housing. That's one. And the other one that we're getting from that is through the Home Investment Partnership Program, and that's 3.2 or 3.5, who knows, and all these millions. But what we're going to do with that, one of the things you can do is you can do affordable housing. So we will probably do a competitive for nonprofits and governmental entities that want to take advantage of that.
Just one follow-up. Your emergency vouchers program, are you guys working with social services as well? Or no?
Social services in the county and social services in the city is a little bit different. Social services in the county does not have anything to do with the voucher program. We're a separate office. The ones that help the park residents, they do come through the city of Manassas through the vouchers that they get from the
Virginia Housing.
Virginia Housing. Okay, after all these years of calling Virginia House Development Authority, that's something I know that, but that's where that would come from. So with this program that we're going to be doing, it won't have anything to do with social services for us per se, except that social services is the head of the COC. So in essence, we still are working with social services because the chairman, well, I think the chairman of the COC is my boss, and the vice chairman is the director of social services. So in essence, we kind of are working with social services.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Did you?
Go
Alana?
My question's for Laszlo, really. Does DSS hand out this information, or could we get them to hand out this information?
Yeah, we can post it directly and we can hand it out. Absolutely. Yep.
Cool. Thanks. Thank you.
No questions on the first-time homebuyer program?
I have a question about that.
Good.
Councilmember Amaya.
My question is, do people that have tax ID, not necessarily a social security number, can they apply for home? Are they eligible?
Most of the time, tax IDs are with businesses. I don't know if tax IDs go with an individual.
They do.
Do they?
Yes, people with tax ID.
It's a 10, isn't it?
Yes, so,
All right.
10.
right, so
For our
individual.
Program, they can have a 10, but we have to have documentation that they are legally in the U.S. that, so we can do a work visa that is not expired. We can do a permanent resident alien. We can use passport, things like that. But the government for these programs requires that they're U.S. citizens, that they're in the U.S. legally.
And the reason why is because the funds are being administered by our office, and we are a governmental agency, and that's the reason. If we gave the money, which the county has done, to nonprofits to administer a program, they are not required to have some of the same restrictions we are.
Do you have a follow-up?
No.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
Well, I just, hey, good evening. I guess about your Section 8 housing programs and the wait list, right? A lot of owners and landlords have this stigma behind the Section 8 programs, and they kind of don't want the vouchers coming in.
We haven't found that problem, to be very honest with you. I will tell you, like I said, been around a long time.
Yeah.
Whenever we did Section 8 back in the day, in the county, the only place that we could find a landlord was in Williamstown in Dumfries. That was it. The same thing with the city, because we administered for the city back then. It was only Georgetown South. That was the only place that you could get a landlord to participate. You would be surprised the neighborhoods where people are living. Quite affluent neighborhoods in the county. And so we don't have that problem. And I think the reason why is because they're assured of the money.
Right.
Every single month, they know that, and they know that if the property is not being maintained, that we will not make payments. So there's this standard that we're keeping up the properties, and then the other part is majority of the people pay very little towards the total contract rent, and the majority of the rent, or for them, their mortgage, they know the money is coming. So we don't have that problem. And I will tell you that for social services, they have a rapid rehousing program that we help fund. And they have a hard time finding landlords to participate. Well, the reason why, they're only guaranteeing 3 months worth of rent. You know, and the people normally don't have good credit and a lot of the other problems that people have with that. So we're hoping that this new program will help those homeless individuals, because we're going to pay security deposits, which we don't usually pay with Section 8, just so you know. But this new program, they're setting aside money for security deposits for utilities and for the rent for families. So they're trying to make it as easy as possible to get people into a home. They're trying to follow what Department of Social Services and a lot of people call housing first. You put the person in a housing, then you get the services instead of vice versa. You give them all the services and then find them a home. So it's just a different philosophy.
Follow-up?
No.
Can I ask a couple questions? Sure. Actually, first, clarifying question for the agency staff. It says 14 HCV. What is HCV?
Housing choice vouchers.
Those are employees who are dedicated to that?
That's right.
Okay, and then CPD?
That's her. That's people that are working with the community development block grant funds, the home funds, and the emergency shelter funds.
Okay, all right.
And any other funds that we get.
Okay, so just for that then.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, they're quite busy.
And you said this is 100% funded by the state and federal government, with only the county providing a small share of the direct
The county, well, you see what our budget is. The county provides $96,000 or $94,000 towards my salary.
Okay. Does the state and federal government determine your staff size?
No.
Who does?
And we do based upon the amount of money, and that's a bad thing.
Okay.
Because what happens is we get, I'll use CDBG as an example, 20% of our allocation is for that. So we have 4 staff. They have raises each year. That isn't taken into account by your federal dollars that come in. You get the same federal dollar. So if you get $2 million each year, that's how much admin dollars that you have every single year. So you don't get an increase in that respect. So ever since we've been in a entitlement jurisdiction, we've had to make sure to stay within those confines. The same thing is true with the Housing Choice Voucher Program, which is even worse, because with that program, you are not funded on a fiscal year, you're funded on a calendar year. And so we don't find out until late in the year, and they base it upon how many people you had leased in the prior year. So you never know how much admin dollars you're going to get. So last year, we were $320,000 short, meaning we got some good paid people in that housing choice voucher. No, it's not true. It's just the cost of doing business. So we have what is called an admin reserve that you have, and we had money in there, so we had to basically borrow $300,000 from there so that we could make sure at the end of the year we were balanced. So that one's a hard one.
And then, does the county ever request CDBG money for like commercial revitalization, streetscape?
No. And the reason why it's very difficult, because you've got to show beneficiaries. So like if we were going to do a streetscape, you're going to have to either have a survey of the people living on that streetscape, or it's got to be in a census tract. And so the county, we have pockets that might be eligible, but not like the whole county. So they would prefer using other federal dollars, I guess, to do those kind of projects, because this one is limited to low and moderate, and I guess they see where the need is, and that's why they have approved, where the money's going. And also, if you get a lot of people that come to these meetings and want money in certain areas, well, that's where because that's what happened, that's where we're going to put money. We have a very robust homeless advocacy group here, and also in working with persons with disabilities. So if you ever go online and look at our annual action plan, you'll see that a lot of our money goes towards activities that benefit that population.
And then last question, just clarify, are towns within the county and then the two cities, are we eligible to apply?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're eligible, the towns are eligible to apply for competitive funds because they're a part of the county. If the park wanted to apply for competitive funds, they would have to do an activity that also benefited the city or the county, because the amount of funding has to be based upon the number of people that you would serve in the city or the county. So if the park decided they wanted to do a wonderful program and it was going to benefit the whole Prince William area, yes, you could apply, but we couldn't pay for the portion of a person's salary, percentage of salary, if they were doing work just for the park and the activity. But if they were working for something, say, for the city and the park as a joint venture, then yes, if they were going to do, like say, 90% of it was for the city, then yes, you could apply for 90% of what your cost is from that city's competitive funds. And then the park would have to budget and appropriate whatever amount of money, for your portion.
Is that true for towns as well? That has to be.
The towns are
because
different
they're part
because the
of
towns are part of the county, yeah.
So it's not cumulative though, right? So if we can determine that the 68,000 per year since 92 is a certain amount and that much hasn't been invested in our city, we can't say.
That's not what I said. Let me clarify. So we didn't use your money for the past 5 years. It's not still sitting there for you.
Yeah, no, I wasn't assuming that. I was just assuming, could we get credit for that? But it doesn't sound like you can. It's an annual. Okay.
No credit here. But what we can do is, like I say, for the rehab, it used to be they were separate, but we made a decision, let's just combine it. That way, no matter who comes in, we're going to serve. That way, if a park person comes in and we've already used the money that year, well, you have to be on the waiting list till next year. Now, that's not right. So that's the reason that we changed that. And the same thing with home ownership. We do the same thing. We don't base it upon what you're allocated. We base it upon the total amount of money that we have available. And let me tell you, we have a lot of money for first-time home buyers. We have an additional $680,000.
$656,000.
Yeah, it came in this year. So what that means is, this is a good time to sell your home and get some money. So people sold their home and they're paying us back our money, and then they're walking away with money also. So it's
Our average assistance for the county right now is over $100,000 for down payment.
Wow.
Okay, let's talk about
That's good to know.
If they purchase in a census tract that was identified during the foreclosure crisis, they can get a 1% below the current market rate through Virginia Housing. Currently,
So that's
Virginia Housing.
pretty good. And I think a lot of the park was the older section.
the older section is completely. So if anyone purchases over there, they would be automatically eligible for the 1% below the going interest rate. Plus 23% down payment or 33, depending upon their income.
Laszlo, do you have a follow-up?
No, that's
How cumbersome is the process? Because it's
Again, it's federal money.
Good, yeah.
It's not, I mean, we're like a lender.
Mhm.
And basically, we work with them like a lender.
Okay.
And we work with them and their lender. And we work with them
And
and
their
their
agent.
sales contract, and their sales agent, their real estate agent. It is a team effort. And so they have to be a first-time home buyer, as defined by HUD, cannot have owned a home or had interest in the last 3 years in real property. And so we the same kind of thing, citizenship, social security cards, income eligibility, asset information, all of that. There's an application process. We do require educational classes that Bill talked about. We fund the Prince William County Virginia Cooperative Extension Program, and they provide the home ownership classes for us, as well as a smart money management and a financial assessment one-on-one.
So the one class they do on Saturdays,
Yeah.
like in the afternoon or morning.
They were doing them virtually.
Yeah.
Now they're back.
Now they're back to do them in person. So that's a Saturday that they have obligated, and then there's 2 other classes. So, and it's to help them so that we've had very, very little foreclosures, even in the foreclosure crisis that was there. Because I think people, whenever they take the classes, then they're more aware of what they really can afford instead of what a mortgage company says you can afford.
Right.
Plus, we have tight ratios on our program. Because we're monitored by HUD, because we're not setting people up for failure, our ratios are tight, 32 on the housing, 40 on the debt. And if you're kissing those, you have to be really clean, buyer. And we work with the lenders. They have to be BH approved. So I'm so used to saying BHDA. BH approved.
Well, I'm trying to call it DD, which is even worse. I mean, in my head, that's what it be.
Oh, Mr. Lake.
She would be very happy.
No, she doesn't. And so it is a process, and it's not a difficult process, but again, the rewards at the end is worth a little bit at front. They're doing the same thing with the lender. They have to be pre-qualified with the lender. They're basically doing the same thing. They accept the home ownership classes, and it does not cost the park anything for their residents to come to those classes. What?
The other thing is after they buy the house, we are also pushing them to apply for the rehab program so that they can get the energy things in their home also.
Yeah.
Are these classes available in Spanish?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
What days? Saturdays as
I
well?
have no idea the days. I know they offer them both, but.
Are they on the website?
Extension.
It's on the website. We have a link on the website to the extension.
This is good.
And then they sign up for the classes, and they have to take those prior to applying for the first time.
I think Councilmember Moore has a
I just
question.
had a quick follow-up. I know you guys do housing choice vouchers. Do you guys also do project-based vouchers?
We do Chitty.
Chitty.
Remember Chitty?
Yes.
Chitty Bang Bang?
Yes.
Those
That's
11
project-
properties, those are project-based. They're the only ones. The reason why we do not is because you are able to do 8% of your total vouchers, but then you have to open it up for all nonprofits that want to make application for project-based. And we just said, it isn't worth it. For us, we're drowning with what we're doing now, and so we never have opened it up.
One last
Councilmember
question. Sorry, question about the first-time homebuyer program. I guess talking from experience, a couple of years back, a family member helped another family member co-sign on a loan, and but not on the deed. And then she tried to apply for a home buyer's program, and she was denied because they found her name attached to the mortgage.
Yes.
So, but she never bought the house, though. She never lived the house. She was helping her family member. Is that how can?
Well, so what happens there is your ratios.
Yeah.
She's more liable for that mortgage payment than the people she co-signed.
Yeah.
So when you go to qualify as a first-time home buyer, you have an interest in that property. and so would not meet the definition, and the lender more than likely isn't going to give her a loan unless her income is exorbitant,
Right.
and then she's not going to be income eligible.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's kind of like a domino.
Catch-22 type thing. Interesting.
What you could recommend is that she have the family that she co-signed in these really low interest rates refinance and get her off of it.
Final questions
Good
or
to know.
comments? No?
Interesting stuff.
Okay, thank you so much. That was a very complete presentation. We will go over the paperwork very carefully. We'll send questions to Laszlo, and he can compile them and forward them to you.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect, that's perfect. And then
Okay.
I will send to Ms. Connor that PowerPoint presentation.
Thank you.
As well as
Also
the
electronic?
county website, as well as the
Flyers.
so
Thank
that
you.
they can be
Shared.
Shared,
Thank you.
absolutely. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So you can go home before midnight.
That's a challenge.
Take care. Drive safely. Okay. Moving on to consent agenda. Corrections to the minutes of June 1st have already been provided to City Clerk. So consent agenda consists of the minutes of May 26th and the corrected minutes of June 1st, 2021. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, moving on to unfinished business. We moved up VRE Green Space to 8A. So is that Laszlo? Are you?
Got the same picture.
Okay, can everyone at home see that?
The VRE people.
Chris, can you see that? Or Chief Sofa? Can you see the slide? Okay, perfect. And Adil, are you on the call?
I am here.
Perfect. Okay, great, thank you. So, good evening, members of the governing body. So we started speaking about this issue at the last meeting, and Mr. Adil from the VRE is here to answer any further questions. And I handed out earlier the email that I sent you all yesterday for the additional questions that we had and what the initial responses we had as well. We also started talking today about potentially a bush option, just like laying out bushes there like we have inside City Hall. Those are incredibly low maintenance. I don't think we really do anything with these bushes, and nothing happens to them. They sit there. They're pretty good at screening. I have to look at that in my office every single day, and it blocks it, and there's really nothing we do with it. So that could be another alternative, low-cost solution as well if we don't feel comfortable with any of these other solutions. But again, Adil, I don't know if you want to add anything, or are you just here to answer any follow-up questions that the governing body may have?
I know we talked about paint as well, Laszlo, and another option that was thrown out was we can use anti-graffiti paint, which, doesn't prevent graffiti, but you can clean it much easier. So, that was another option as well, if you want to paint it.
Okay.
So are there any questions?
Okay. Questions or comments? Thoughts? Preferences?
I have a question.
Yes.
My preference is for the stuff that grows up on the trellis. Having ridden that VRE in Amtrak way too much over the years, I can tell you that once you get past Alexandria and from Alexandria to LaFont, all of the different walls have all sorts of tagging on them.
Mm-hmm.
And I've even seen that up in New York, so I'm not
I was
overly
glad
fond.
to see it was 6 feet tall. I was very pleased to see the height of that. So then the more I looked at it, the more I liked it.
Yeah, it is hard to tell from.
Very hard to tell. Yeah. Did you have a question?
I do. So is the green wall like in front of an existing wall then? Is like at a trellis in front of a wall? Okay.
And that's shown on the bottom?
Yeah, so the bottom picture is the green wall, the top left is the bare wall, and the right is kind of the nice scenic landscaping, which again, it's only gonna be people on the train seeing it.
Yeah.
That's what we also thought, well, what about just some bushes just to cover up? So if you deal with the tagging issue, and have a low maintenance solution as well. But, yeah, the green wall, it's on a trellis, so it's not part of the.
I have another question.
Yes.
If we should go by the route of the trees or the shrubbery, the other thing that I've seen riding the trains is that there tends to be litter that gets caught in the shrubbery, your random plastic bag, and who knows what else. Whose job would it be to go out there and pick that up?
If there's litter.
Yeah, so what happens when you ride, and it's just something when you spend a lot of time on the train, these are things that you see, because you have an hour and there's not much else to do. It's the truth. And you'll see just, like I said, random trash bags, random bags from a grocery store, pieces of paper that basically stream those trees.
So the deal is a common practice for VRE garages. Is that something your maintenance team takes care of?
Yeah, so our crews are out daily doing trash pickup at the station, and we'll do that at the garage as well. So we can make them, just monitor the bush or the trellis even. I think the trellis has a lower, capability of catching on, because those are just lines, not like a bush where we would see more of the bag get attached. But we can ask them to just go around and make sure they collect that. So that shouldn't be a problem.
Thank you.
Just to follow up Councilmember Panton's question.
Go ahead.
So when you say the crews, your crew, was that the contractors you hire for the Manassas Park VRE station? Because they normally, they're out leaf blowing and doing random things. So they would have to, they're permitted to cross the tracks and take care of the green wall. Is that what you're saying? Because
so
go ahead.
Our contract will include maintenance of the garage as well. So they will be doing, emptying the trash cans and, anything else that is needed at the garage.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
My question is there, with the other VRE garages, is there, graffiti currently on any of the garages? Or a huge problem with the VRE garages?
On the bridges.
As far as I know, not really. Usually bare concrete does attract it, though. So.
But no other jurisdiction has complained about graffiti presence?
So usually VRE does not manage garages. Most of the jurisdictions build and operate like Fairfax County, Burke Center, that garage is maintained by Fairfax County. So I think the only garage we maintain is, I believe, Woodbridge and Manassas. So, and we have not had that problem there as far as I know, but I can confirm that with maintenance. I'm not really aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. Do you currently have a garage with the trees and shrubs like in the photograph? I'm concerned about the fact that they're quite close to the railroad track, and shrubs and trees can get shocked and die from heavy equipment if the heavy equipment operates too close to the tree or the shrub. So have you had any experience with that?
Nothing in specific, but we usually have trees going really close to our tracks all the time, so we haven't seen any die-off happening. And I think there is a decent distance here, and traffic's not that, this is not a very heavy traffic line. It's usually just, VRE and Amtrak and maybe a few NS trains. So.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Are you anticipating any sort of seasonal care in regards to the green wall, like leaves that need to be removed or painting of the trellis?
My understanding is that these lines are evergreen, but some may die off and need to be replaced. So that's the only maintenance that, we've discussed that if some, if a plant dies off, we may have to come back and replace them. And then if it's peak summer, we may have to water them, every week, like when it's really hot outside.
Okay, thank you.
We have a question from the public. Mr. Michael Williams would like to know, how about growing English ivy on the walls? It doesn't damage good masonry, it's cheap, and would prevent graffiti. It's used in Pennsylvania uses it on the blue right quite successfully. I don't know what the blue right is, but anyway, Pennsylvania uses it successfully. Can you address that question?
Sure. Again, this is not my expertise, but I'm going to try to answer that one. I think the reason why we want the green wall is because the plants are managed on a trellis and not actually attached to the structure. I don't think we want them to climb because we are spending a lot of money on the brick itself, and so we don't want to hide the brick with the ivy. And the ivy, once it grows, it's hard to control, is my understanding.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. If the governing body were to choose the shrubs and the trees, they won't start out that large, right? How little are they? And how long does it take to get to that size?
I will have to get back to you on that. That was a concern that I raised with Laszlo as well, was that
okay.
The cost usually, the cost is based on, how big those shrubs you end up buying. And so I think that's why the foundation planting was a lot higher than the trellis, or not a lot higher, but comparably higher. I believe because most likely they were buying full-size plants there to hide it. But I can get back to you on that.
Okay. Was it twice the cost? I can't remember.
It was 130.
$35,000.
I beg your pardon?
$35,000 more.
35 more. Okay. Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay. Do you need a decision this evening?
I guess a consensus for where you're feeling it, and maybe if you give us a little bit of time, Calvin and I, to explore the bush option versus so if you're leaning more towards the green wall, let us evaluate the bush option as well, because there's some concern about the look of the green wall, to Councilmember Mensing's point, during dry season and other things. We want to make sure that it's looking good, whereas bushes seem to have, at least the ones here in City Hall, they just maintain themselves. They're the easiest things to manage. So maybe giving us, those two options of figuring out if you're leaning towards green wall, if you're leaning towards the foundation planting, then that's fine, or just the bare wall, that's fine. But at least getting an idea of what the consensus is would be great. But if you go with the green wall, let's at least try to explore the bush option and follow back up with email and see if it's a lower cost and just easier maintenance, and maybe, unless there's concerns with going with bushes.
Okay, well, let's go down the line and see what the preference is. Councilmember Hampton, what's your preference?
I'm more for the green wall.
Okay. Vice Mayor Banks?
I'm for Laszlo's option, the green wall, or the option of the bush.
But Toulouse?
Same.
Yeah.
Green wall option of the bush.
Okay, I'm for the green wall with the option of the bush.
I'm for the foundation planting or the bush.
Same here, green wall or option with bushes.
Okay.
The foundation planting is the top right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm in favor for that or the bush as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll do some follow-up work a deal and try to get an idea of the cost of the bush, and Calvin and I will get back to you. But it seems like that's the consensus from what I'm hearing, is green wall or bush with the majority. Okay, and I'll follow back up with an email about what the costs and pros and cons are of the bush.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for all the information.
Thanks for dealing.
Thank you.
Moving on to the, which is now 8B, and that would be vehicle test driving and residential speeding, the public hearing having been held on June 1st. Is there any staff comment?
I don't have anything. It was all addressed at the public hearing.
No more wise words, Dean?
Nothing, sorry.
Are there any comments or questions from the governing body? Any? Or have we covered this enough? Okay. Yes.
Sorry, one question.
Yes.
When would we be picking the areas? Is that after the
I think you
ordinance?
should schedule a work session to discuss that. What your, if you guys want to make the decisions, or you can just direct me to evaluate that with staff and
Come back with recommendations.
Regarding-
We can come back with recommendations, or yeah?
Put it that way.
Okay.
Regarding the residential areas.
Yeah,
to
which
choose.
areas will be
Okay.
residential?
Can we give Laszlo a suggestion, for example, check the police data to see where ticketing is?
That's what we'd want to start with, of
Okay,
course, is the
yeah.
data. Yeah.
Well, you are required to come up with some criteria for doing this, so that would probably be a good thing.
Yeah,
So,
okay. Well, can we direct Laszlo to come up with some criteria?
yeah, that'd be.
Okay. Any comments on the criteria in addition to speeding, Vice Mayor Banks? You
Yes, because there's some concerns on the west side of the city of speeding. Remember Lambert was one of them. So, just consider both sides of the city.
Okay.
Oh, it will, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And we could phase it in if we chose to. We could just do the portions of Manassas Drive and then expand it. I mean, there's a couple ways we could go with this.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So along with speeding data, we're also looking at crash data as well, I assume?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we can come back with the criteria of how we.
Yeah, that'd be perfect.
Okay. Dean, any last comments?
Nope, I was.
Okay. Staff recommendation is that the governing body approve and adopt an ordinance to add a new section 24-43 to the city code that would prohibit test driving of motor vehicles in residence districts designated for increased fines pursuant to section 46.2-878.2 of the Code of Virginia as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, moving on to FY22 Budget Amendment Number 3, the public hearing having been held on June 8th.
This is for the FY21 Budget Amendment 3. And I don't have anything to add, but I do have the budget up if there's any, or available if you want to make any modifications to Amendment 3. Just as, again, as a reminder in the public hearing, the main item to adjust was just the CARES Act alignment, but we also did add some few things like the library adjustments, receipt of state funding for that, and some other. But the slide deck goes over kind of all the different changes, so I'm here to answer any follow-up questions or make any edits to the budget.
Any follow-up questions or comments?
Does that include the VRE subsidy decrease?
That's going to be for FY22.
Got it. Okay.
And that's going to be brought as an agenda item for the 22nd next week, along with the FY22 budget ordinance, taxes and fees, and appropriations 1. And we'll follow that up also with the PRTC resolution for the subsidies.
Yeah, thanks.
And do we need to do a vote for that? I guess what was it? The police department of Marcus, Rave 911.
That's part of this. Yeah, and I.
But do we need to take a separate vote on just that, or?
No, that's happening. That's kind of state mandate. But we will bring over the next few months is a multi-year contract.
Right.
That will be brought in, but that
Okay.
doesn't have to be done right now.
Right now, okay, that's fine.
Okay. Staff recommendation is that the governing body adopt the FY21 A3 budget amendment as presented. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Fourth quarter appropriation adjustments for the city.
Here again, the main thing we're adding on top of what was already approved for the fourth quarter, which is the $280,000 additional that was laid out in the budget amendment from the additional revenues.
Questions, comments? Or is this pretty straightforward? Okay. Staff recommendation is that the governing body appropriate $280,312 to the city for adjustment to the fourth quarter of fiscal year 2021.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to the next item, it is consideration of a resolution establishing a community maintenance working group. The creation of this working group really comes at a good time. The city's beginning to get ahead of itself financially, ahead of the financial challenges that have forced the city into an understaffing situation. Fortunately, in the FY22 budget, there is funding contained in the budget to fund an additional 2 part-time positions for code enforcement, so we really look forward to improvement. Are there any comments or questions of either Laszlo or Councilmember Hampton? Any comments or questions?
Well, on the resolution, it doesn't state how it's going to be governed. Is that going to be a separate document? This working group, how it's going to be governed?
What do you mean by governed?
Like how you can make the appointments, who's going to be the chair?
Well, the chair is listed in there. It's me.
Well, yeah, the chair, but I guess getting new members in.
So
and is there going to be meetings in the minutes being presented publicly?
Well, they don't have to have minutes necessarily, but they do have to follow the Virginia FOIA, Freedom of Information Act.
Okay.
And so at the first meeting, Dean will be there to school everybody on FOIA.
Sure.
As far as deciding who's on the committee, as you recall from 2 weeks ago, the decision was that all of us here would decide. There would be a vetting process. People would put in an application, I guess that's the only word to use, and then we would decide.
Okay.
And there would be one individual, there'll be 3 residents, 1 from each section of the city.
Right.
And it's only 1 page long. I can't put everything in the resolution.
Yeah, no, I understand. I was just wondering if there'll be a separate documentation. And then my last question is, would you, as as a chair, are you having a say on who gets appointed to? Will you be having that vote?
You mean appointing it as far as residents?
Yeah.
Once again, that'll be from 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
All of us will decide.
Well, including yourself?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right, I mean, that's my question. I was just...
You look puzzled. Do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, no, I mean, you find it would be any conflict or anything?
Why would it be a conflict? We have, the rest of us serve on committees.
Yeah.
And we appoint people, so there should not be a conflict.
Okay. Fair enough.
And if you're worried about my skills, I mean, I've managed
I'm not worried about that. I would just...
well over 200 people have been interviewed
confident,
too many times myself.
Right, no, I'm confident in that. I'm just wondering in the appointment process if there will be a conflict.
Being chair and also voting on the...
voting on the,
No, I think it's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Councilmember Moore?
I had a question based on Councilmember Javid's line of questioning. Have we decided how we're going to select the other council person to serve on this committee with you, Councilmember Hampton?
Well, Councilmember Messing has already reached out to me and asked to be on there. So there's that, or, I haven't really thought that far other than she raised her hand first.
Could I raise my hand second?
You can raise your hand second.
And I'm second.
That competition.
Are you volunteering?
Yes, I wanted to be part of I wasn't sure that we were already putting our names in, so I didn't know
I
what the
just wanted to
procedure
be
was.
clear that you...
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And then you guys, once again, we can decide amongst ourselves. We can put a name in a hat, we can flip a coin, whatever we want to do.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay.
No, it's important that we...
Yeah.
That question was asked.
Okay, is everybody okay with that?
Do we want to come up with some questions or...
For the 2 candidates?
Yeah, for the candidates
interview
to give
them?
Yeah, like written questions. And
I think we should.
I think that's a good process.
Because anytime, I can tell you from my professional experience, when we interview folks, and I'm not necessarily going to interview, but we'll do it on paper, everybody had questions. And when we interviewed people, everybody had a different set of questions. And we all sat around afterwards and kind of weighed the pros and cons. Granted, those decisions were a little bit different because it also just dealt with, is that person within our budget? But we don't have a budget, so. And some of the big ones, like is the person a resident, those things could be easily dealt with, meaning, a resident Manassas Park. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, just a clarifying question on this resolution. So it seems like the scope of work is to develop a strategic plan for community maintenance and beautification efforts. Is that correct?
That's the best word I can come up with, but yes, a plan.
So it'll develop goals, objectives. Okay. So are you also, because I remember the conversation last time was researching best practices from other jurisdictions and education.
Right.
So
that's that can be part of a strategic plan. And breaking it down by, short term, medium term, long term. maybe strategic plan is not the best word to use, but I honestly couldn't come up with any other word. If we want to, we can strike the word strategic and just say plan.
Recommended plan?
That
I
will
think
work.
education should be added into the resolution, educating the community.
And research.
And research.
Just put those
I think
two
we
words
should-
in.
I think we should point out that the version that was uploaded to the website is not the correct version. The cleaned up version is the one in our packet this evening. The one on the website had marker and okay, just
Yeah.
want to make sure. Okay.
Recommended plan.
Questions or comments?
Well, I think the city manager's comment was, I didn't hear how we're going to address that. Put the research in.
A recommended plan
Education.
and research to a research and plan,
Well, we say to research, develop, and prepare the plan.
right? It's already there.
That's the plan, but that's not necessarily best practices.
Well, we can delve
Yeah.
we can put in there partially based on best practices, the plan. We say plan, and then and I'm underneath the second paragraph. The fourth sentence, after the word plan, we can put in there, comma, based on best practices and other findings, close the comma, no later than 365 days. Well, that's that.
Can I make a
Well,
recommendation?
does it even have to include best practices? Because whatever's recommended will come back to the governing body and staff will make comment. And if it's not best practice, then staff would let the governing body know.
Yeah, but there's a
that.
difference between a plan and a researching of best practices. So it almost spells
Okay.
out like you should hereby the special working group for the purpose of researching best practices when it comes to community maintenance and beautification efforts, developing a plan or strategic plan, and involvement in community education efforts. Right?
Yes,
Like pinpoint, those were the three objectives I thought that was discussed last time.
correct.
So where do you think that should go
Well,
in
let's
here?
say, now therefore be it resolved that the governing body hereby creates a special working group for the purpose of researching best practices when it comes to community maintenance and beautification efforts, developing and preparing a plan, and presenting to the governing body in the public meeting for its consideration, and to support community education efforts.
Yes.
Did you get that, Dean?
No, I started, but then I'm not a stenographer.
And we don't have to do that. I'm bringing that up because that was discussed last time.
Yes.
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
It was.
Sure.
Or just
So
paragraph?
therefore be it resolved. that the
Okay.
governing
I'm
body
sorry, I
hereby
couldn't hear
creates a
what he
special
said.
working
Which
group For the
paragraph?
purposes of researching.
Oh, the
best
third paragraph.
practices,
Okay.
And then comma,
The
developing
now
and preparing
one.
the plan and presenting, yeah, that's fine, then comma after consideration. Right there? Yeah, and supporting community education efforts. 'Cause I do think that community education effort is going to be very, very important.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so did you want to strike the strategic for, and before the definition of plan in the first recital?
Yeah, just have plan.
Okay, so a recommended plan
It's a little bit more flexible.
to address community maintenance and beautification efforts to help, okay, to, what after that? You want to change it? the rest
Should
of
we
that?
modify that one too?
Well, I mean, the recital just says what you guys agreed to, on June 1st. So it doesn't necessarily have to match exactly what you're doing now. It's just you're stating this is what you agreed to. So does it currently state what you agreed to, or do you want to modify that first recital a little bit? So you have to research, identify, develop, and present to the governing body a recommended plan to address community maintenance and beautification efforts, which will help present the city in special, or it's a little clunky the way it's written, but
Thanks, Dean.
I mean, I looked at it too, so I mean, it's just not, I'm not pointing a finger at you. I'm just reading it again. It just, I mean,
We'll have it mimic the other verbiage that we just incorporated.
well, like I said, it should reflect what you agreed to at the June 1st meeting. It doesn't necessarily have to be the same verbiage. I mean, you can change your mind between then and now.
And I did, in most of that first paragraph, I did pull from the presentation.
Yeah.
So we just leave it like that. So to address community maintenance and beautification efforts to help present the city in this best light to residents and visitors, which
Because that's just the background.
states
right?
what it was.
Yeah.
That's just the background.
Right. And the recitals are never part of the actual document unless you incorporate them. And we're not incorporating them. So,
That sounded good, Dean.
okay.
Okay.
So leave it as Laszlo admitted it and as we just changed it up to.
How about if I add on pending final review by city attorney as we
For the, okay, that would be for the actual motion, but this was the resolution itself, right?
Right, that's what I meant for the motion.
Okay.
Can I add another point? So for the residents, I brought this up last time, but I feel it's important to have representation from the Spanish-speaking community. That's not addressed here, but that's a big component of what we do in terms of our community maintenance efforts is engaging. So I feel it's important. I don't know if it needs to be addressed here or not, but I would hate for that to be left off because I don't think
It's
you
a
get a full.
balanced approach.
Correct, especially for the education efforts, like for everything we've done, whether it's the Census Bureau, the census, or vaccination. That's been a big part of our effort as well, and I would hate for that not to be part of this effort as well.
Do you think the governing body needs to direct this working group to do that?
I'm sure there's representation. I would think so.
But the governing body is going to be determined.
Appointing the members. Okay, so maybe it's not needed. I just wanted to.
But that's on the record for us. And
Right, we'll take that into consideration.
And it's actually in the minutes. So, I mean, I tried not to, typically with something like this, at least in project management, you don't throw everything in here. This is just to get you started. And then if you remember that when I showed the cone, you know, how we're really high at the top and then we start to streamline as we get down. When we actually start our working documents and kind of come up with the goals and all that stuff, we can make sure those concerns are folded into that.
And my other question was, this is going to be continuing on every year.
No, it's a 12-month.
Yeah, it's ad hoc.
Yeah.
So the working group will continue in existence until the early 365 days in creation. Termination of the working group will be taken by a vote.
Yeah. We approve it, and then we have to approve to close it.
Right.
And then if that time the board decides that, if the governing body decides they want to continue it, you have that option.
Right. So at that time, you'll be chair again.
You know, let's cross that bridge when it comes. Maybe I don't have time to be.
Yeah.
Maybe someone else should be. I don't know.
Yeah.
But for right now, I can only tell you this next 12 months, it's me as the chair and someone else.
Oh no, you're doing a great job. That's I'm not saying that. I was just trying to see to continue. If we continue this every year, and say even if you don't come back to a governing body and still continues, we have this verbiage in here that the chair will be Laura Hampton.
For the 12-month, for this initial one.
yeah.
So this is only for 12 months. And that
So
was the proposal.
It automatically terminates 1 year from now.
Okay.
So if the governing body decides they want it to continue, at that point, they decide who the chair would be.
Okay.
But the chair, the group as spelled out in here is only for 1 year.
And then Dean, if it continues beyond 1 year, then it no longer to be an ad hoc committee, would
It
it?
could be a permanent committee, yeah, you can just change it. So you can do whatever you want at that point.
The whole point is this is going to survive you, basically. You want this to continue.
No. The work from it will live beyond.
Right.
It'll live beyond month 12, but this committee, the whole purpose of this committee is only to live for 365 days to build that resource. And then that resource that can be rolled out over time.
Yeah.
But
If you have
remember-
sufficient data within the year, I'm saying.
I've built PMOs. There's been a lot of, you could probably attest to contracts.
Yeah, they have to get stuff done on time.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of times you have less than a year. This is actually pretty generous.
Yeah.
And there's so much interest in our community for this.
Oh yeah.
Right.
No, I'm not against it. This is good. I'm just trying, get the details.
Process.
If
the
we're
whole
still
process.
grappling with this 5 years from now, that'll be a tragedy. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Any last minute thoughts?
So if this extends an extra year, we would do another resolution?
Right.
Okay.
Thank you, Laura, for this idea. This is well needed. And I can't wait to see this get started.
Okay. Staff recommend, the recommended motion is that the governing body approve and adopt a resolution to create a special working group to prepare a recommended strategic plan to address community maintenance and beautification pending final review by city attorney.
Mayor, if I could just point out, we struck strategic just now. So that was, since that was written, the governing body decided to remove the word strategic. So it's just a plan.
Do you want me to repeat the motion?
I don't think it's necessary. I mean,
Okay.
just strike the word
with the
strategic.
word strategic struck.
Right.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Oh, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you all for passing it.
Yep.
We had a comment come in from Keith. Ms. Denholm wants to know who is also going to maintain the cameras that do not work. Oh, she's referring to the cameras at the VRE. And she asked during the vehicle test driving agenda item. Okay. For example, the cameras down there at the VRE don't work, particularly when the dog got shot. So does anyone know the status of the cameras at the VRE?
I don't know if they're functional or not. That's something that we,
Chiefly. At the parking lot?
did they ever fix them? Or?
No. Whose responsibility is it? VRE?
VRE.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
We have remember, we're putting in a plan for better camera systems.
Yes.
So had our camera been the new that we're proposing in the CIP, the new camera system at that intersection, we also would have caught him. So we don't want to be dependent on the VRE. We want to be able to do that ourselves. So it's something that we are addressing. It's just, it's in the CIP.
Have we continued to ping the VRE about this?
Yeah.
Okay.
We've done all we could and gotten the word out. We're shocked that no one's come forward yet to say whose dog that was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to new business. 9A is appointment to the Manassas Park School Board. We'll be making two school board appointments this evening, utilizing two separate motions. We had 4 candidates, and we want to again thank the candidates very much for making application. It would be Mr. Paul Alexander, Ms. Stacy Fleming, Mr. Tyler Vaughn, and Ms. Harmony Bisco. So do we have our first motion?
I move to appoint Stacy Fleming to the school board.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Do we have our second motion?
I move to appoint Paul Alexander to the school board.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Yes, I abstain.
2 abstentions. That would be Councilmember Amaya and Councilmember Moore. Okay, motion carries. Congratulations to Ms. Fleming and to Mr. Alexander. We look forward to much communication and cooperation. Thank you very much. Okay.
Madam Mayor, could we also, since we have a listening audience, let them know that we will be recruiting another school board member in the very near future?
Yes, Lena will be advertising, pending all,
The ones that,
I beg your pardon?
I will send an email to those that applied, letting them know when the next one
Okay.
is advertised.
And we'll be advertising per the legal requirements?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Okay, moving on to FY22 proposed meeting calendar. That would be Laszlo. And thank you for closely tracking the first and third Tuesday meeting schedule that I'm sure residents have become accustomed to.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can see the only pickups for those are going to be on Election Day, November 2nd, and then the week of Christmas, and then the week right after New Year's for January, just for the new governing body members, because we have a lot of staff out on New Year's week. It's hard for us to develop a packet, so it's very difficult to meet that first Tuesday of January, so we usually meet the second Tuesday of January. So you can see on this calendar, we have the required meeting in July. I put a question mark here in August just to determine when do you all want to meet in August. I don't want to presume anything. We usually just meet once in August, but there's nothing prohibiting us from meeting twice or not. September, then afterwards, September aligns with the 1st and 3rd, October 1st and 3rd Tuesday, and I just discussed November, December, January, February again, 1st and 3rd Tuesday, March 1st and 3rd Tuesday, and then April, May, June, as we know right now, that's budgeting season, so we're meeting pretty much every Tuesday.
Okay. Did you say at one point that you recommended August 3rd and 24th? Was that your recommendation?
I didn't make
Oh, okay.
I just put a question mark here. Yeah,
Oh,
for you
okay.
all to-
I don't know where I got that from. Okay. We may not need both meetings in August. We could schedule 2 and then strike 1. So what,
Let's schedule.
beg your pardon?
I would recommend just holding one. I mean, it's August.
Totally agree.
Right.
Just do it the first of the month.
Yeah, the 3rd.
Yeah,
First
I
of
like
the month.
excuse me, the 3rd.
How involved would it be to schedule a second meeting? I mean, if we needed one, because unusual things happen. I did a look back. We ended up with 3 meetings in August last year.
Well, Mayor, it'd just be a special meeting. You can call a special meeting, or 3 members of the governing body can call a special meeting if necessary. So it's,
Okay.
and then you give the notice that's appropriate as you can. So
The 3rd?
Yeah, the 3rd
Is that-
gives us space for a special meeting
Yeah.
or 2.
Is
the
everyone?
3rd Tuesday.
So the 3rd Tuesday or the 3rd of August?
The 3rd of
month.
August.
August 3rd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's going to be a meeting or a regular?
A regular meeting. Yeah.
No other meeting that month, unless it's
Unless it's special.
required.
Unless we need it, yeah.
Yeah, we can call a special meeting. Sure. Comments, questions?
No.
Thoughts?
So,
Preferences?
so there's no month we take a recess.
August,
I agree. I thought we were going to have a recess.
Not
at
in
all.
Manassas
I'll be
Park,
honest.
man. Not in Manassas Park. There's no recess.
Stuff happens.
No, seriously, we got a lot of.
3 meetings
Yes.
in August.
But you could always call a special meeting if something came up.
Year-round
Wasn't there a
thing.
disaster in August? The Mosby?
Well, there were 2 meetings and 1 disaster.
We're very busy here in our city. And I think maybe because of ARPA money, we may have to
Yeah.
do the meetings, or at least maybe,
Okay.
hopefully we can knock out
Yeah.
things on August 3rd, but.
Let's do
as we're-
August 3rd then.
Yeah. as
And
we're
and
getting more
you're
clarity
always free to
on the-
not attend.
You
I
can do it
mean,
you can do it remote.
Let's do August 3rd.
You're always free not to
I
attend.
understand, but I
Yeah.
think the concept of having a month off is
Yeah, I
a
think
worthy
there are
one.
other jurisdictions that do. take
Everyone I've heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so are we all in agreement to meet on August 3rd?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be the addition to the calendar.
I think we all outwork other jurisdictions, so.
I beg your pardon?
I said, I think we all outwork other jurisdictions, so.
Right, right. I've never had a month off in my life, so this is nothing new to me. Okay. Okay, the motion would be to approve the meeting calendar, which is attached with the addition of August 3rd, meeting the evening of August 3rd, Tuesday.
Well, you're not approving. the
So
meeting.
what are
I
we
think you
doing?
approve it on July 20th. This was just to prepare.
Oh, I
But you
see.
officially, per our city code,
I
you
see.
adopt the meeting calendar on, so tonight was just about
Okay.
deliberation. You've given me guidance tonight, so this is gonna be the calendar that I'll be presenting on July 20th.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Oh,
easy,
okay.
easy peasy. Okay. All right.
Wow.
Okay.
The holiday schedule, you do approve before the new fiscal year. The
Okay.
meeting calendar is the first meeting of the year,
Okay.
and that's
Okay.
per city code.
Well, if we're done with this, we can move on to the FY22 proposed holiday schedule. Okay. Has everyone had a chance to look this over?
Just as a reference, I did check again with Loudoun County and Falls Church. They're usually the most, they provide their employees the best holiday schedules. They also pay their employees better than everyone else as well. So this is kind of mimicking their plan very closely for the days that we have off.
Okay. Any comments or questions?
It's just more than we get in the federal government. That's what I,
It looks
Yeah.
pretty much the same.
no, it's more.
More.
It's more.
Okay.
That's sweet. You get
Questions or
Juneteenth.
comments?
Looks good.
It's good.
Okay. Okay, well, Everybody seems to approve. Staff recommendation is that the governing body adopt the attached FY22 holiday schedule resolution. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Thank you. And now we are down to manager's report.
Good evening. So two things to report tonight. The first will be, we've done all of our departmental updates over the last few meetings. Last one we're going to do is emergency management, which is led by Keith. So we'll be presenting on that, and I'll go over a general code enforcement update in specific properties as well. So Keith, I'll turn it over to you.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. Thank you for your time. So the last time I spoke with you all on the emergency management update was back in January when you all ratified the emergency operation plan. So I just want to give a quick update on what has been happening since then. And we'll just kind of focus on the high level details. Obviously, COVID-19 testing and vaccination remains a pretty critical focus area for us. We're fortunate to have the MAP clinic be such a wonderful resource for us. We've worked with them since day one, back in January 29th, and we continue to work with them today. For our resident at home, the MAP clinic is hosting a walk-in clinic every Tuesday morning from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. That is mostly Pfizer, and they will take children 12 plus if they're accompanied by legal guardians or parents. That's a pretty recurring schedule. It looks like it's going to stay that way for at least the next month, just for predictability purposes. Additionally, we also initiated a new program, the homebound vaccination for those that could not make it to the clinic for whatever reason. To date, I think we've had 5 callers, and we've vaccinated 4 completely, and the 5th one is pending a second vaccination, which is already scheduled. So that's going on. For those that are home, please call the number you see on the screen, and we will try to schedule you for an appointment. Additionally, as you know, emergency management is involved in a lot of aspects in the city, most particularly for big events. We call them sort of tier 1 events that has a lot of coordination and planning, and that attracts a lot of people, specifically July 4th. So we've incorporated public safety and EM related elements into the event, and we'll be on site to make sure that it goes smoothly. Other efforts on the administrative side, I mentioned the EOP. The next one will need to be ratified in 4 years. We also have several grants that we work with. One in particular is the local emergency performance grant, and we get that every year, and there's reporting requirements. I try to use that grant to supplement other public safety grants and just kind of boost emergency management capacity. For example, we used that this year to purchase a large tent, just in case we need to use it for like an outdoor assembly area, for example. Additionally, on the financial management side, I am working in FEMA reimbursement. We spend quite a great deal on PPE, cleaning supplies during the response, and many of those are eligible for reimbursement. And so I'm in the process of doing that. We actually have one submitted already and was reimbursed, and we're working on a second submission. A couple of other highlights. We do have a CERT team that I oversee. We have about 11 members, great folks. They're volunteers from the city, and they've been meeting monthly, virtually for right now, but eventually they'll get back to in-person meetings, and really just focusing on the fundamentals, medical triage, that type of training. And then overall, continue with the communication piece. We implemented, I guess what we call a Safety Sunday, just sharing safety tips to help our residents stay ready, in case of an emergency, anything from weather-related tips to, safe barbecuing to road closure, that type of thing. Okay, before I get into sort of the MAP clinic numbers to date, I just want to share a couple of observed trends. As you can see from the data there, the graph to the right, this was pulled a couple of days ago, so it's pretty recent. We have seen declining daily case count across the 3 jurisdictions, and you can kind of see the sharp decline there starting mid-April. What that has led to, of course, is we also see a declining demand for testing and vaccination count as well across all the sites that the county has. because of that, that has a couple of impacts to testing and vaccination efforts. One being the county has transferred testing to really private providers. They used to have testing at Metz Middle School, but that is no longer being conducted. Additionally, the vaccination efforts have really shifted from sort of large-based sites, for example, Manassas Mall, the Community Vaccination Center at Dana Mountain, to more of a community outreach effort at the local level where they'll go to the community and set up booths and encourage people to get vaccinated. So you kind of see a shift in philosophy as well as execution. There are a lot of opportunities for residents to get vaccinated. They are all consolidated, luckily, in that one website. So if any resident is interested in getting a vaccine, all they gotta do is just go to that website and they can find out where they can get vaccinated.
And just to add, they are starting to ship out Pfizer in smaller doses. That's been the limiting factor for primary care doctors not to be able to do this. So the goal, again, is to, just like your flu shot, you can go to a doctor, urgent care, get it. That's the goal with this eventually, is if they can get the vials small enough, they can just provide it to private providers and it can become like a flu shot, which is important when you get to the whole booster concept of booster shots next year. Is going to help us out big time if they can do that.
So just wanted to provide a couple of data points to the Mac Clinic. Again, we're so thankful that they're a part of our community and it's been a wonderful partner. As of a couple of days ago, June 11, they were able to administer over 26,000 vaccinations. Of those, about over 6,700 are fully vaccinated for our residents, as well as 7,800 first dose. You can kind of see the source there if anyone is interested. Usually, they can do up to 250 per day. They have 4 vaccinator and a workforce of about 8 to 10 a day. And the reason it's only 4 vaccinators is because they're also running testing at their other location at the same time. Like I mentioned earlier, we are seeing decreasing demand. For example, even though their capacity is about 250 a day, this morning they administer about 95, of which 60 is first dose. The rest is second dose. So you are seeing that trend. The good news, though, is that we are seeing more children, mostly Spanish-speaking children and construction workers. So really the key demographics that we want to get vaccinated. So what is the MAP clinic, what's their way forward? So like I mentioned, they are going to keep doing testing Tuesday and Thursday. It's at their building is adjacent to the community center. It's drive-through during their normal business hours. They are also performing their regular operations well, so it's not just COVID related. Additionally, for vaccination, I mentioned every Tuesday, 8 to 12, walk-in accepted. And they are, because of the decreasing demand and because of the low, we're helping them to plan a staff and volunteer appreciating event to kind of show, how thankful we are with all the work they've done. So that's the TBD. In terms of the city, or in terms of the emergency management for us, what's next? We have not really been able to do training and professional development because of the COVID situation. However, as we get back to normal, I'm hoping that we can get back to really train our staff. Our goal has always been to sort of send the supervisory level staff to these functional classes, and there are 4 that FEMA advocates for. The acronym is FLOP: Finance, Logistics, Operations, and Planning. Additionally, we've always encouraged that all new employees take those foundational courses, those online courses, the IS series, I call them 100, 200, 700, 800, just to kind of get a familiar feel for what emergency management is about. Additionally, for training, as we get back to normal, I'm hoping to kind of leverage departmental training, for example, CPR or stop the bleeding, to kind of expand that to the rest of the staff who may not be familiar with those tasks. It's all about redundancy. That's what we're trying to build. The other thing that I really want to get back to is just being in the EOC and getting familiar with some of the system that we have in there. For those of you that don't know, we upgraded the PD EOC, and we also outfitted the secondary EOC at fire department. So I'm very excited about that. I want to get staff in there, just kind of get familiar with it, because the last thing you want to do is learn how to turn the buttons on when emergency hits. So.
And just to add, so we'd like to get back to training and just test on different scenarios, but I will say we've had a lot of real world situations the last few years that we've I think we're very good in terms of operations management, but it's good to continue to do this training. And as Keith said, with the CARES Act money, we were able to upgrade some of the technology, so we want to start going over all that as well.
And then just, additional efforts, I mentioned the other stuff. The only other one I'll highlight is continuity of operation plan. The last time we revised that was back in, I think, 2017. So I think it's probably a good time to kind of relook at that, just kind of plan for contingency if something would happen to City Hall or any public facility. What can we do to kind of keep that continuity of governance going? So that's something that I'll look into this year and really continue to kind of identify areas of needs and improvements. I am a staff of one EM. I do rely a lot on the fire department and police department to help me out. But obviously having more hands help lessen the burden. So with that being said, I can answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Any comments or questions for Vice Mayor Banks?
Yeah, Keith, I just wanted to take a moment to show my appreciation and just say job well done for you and Laszlo and even the PD and those at the MAP clinic and all city staff and also the CERT team and everyone that was involved in the vaccination efforts of our citizens and others. Because we know we were the main location for a moment there of vaccinating everyone and getting through this. That was just amazing to see.
And the food delivery too.
Yeah, and the food delivery. I mean, you guys were just learning curve on the spot. And it's amazing how we all came together and did a great job and survived this. My question is there anything like, whether it's an item or even personnel or just something that we need in case this ever happens again, so that would help in this response?
Yeah, I think you're going to see that with the ARPA budget discussion. I think we are going to identify those things such as a chief health coordinating officer, right? That was something that we were missing, and Keith had to figure that out. Again, with the structure, just like housing, right, where it's done by the county. We don't have the capacity here to kind of do that, so we have to rely on our best effort, but that is critical to have. So if we can use this money to at least help us advance that program and see what's happening in the future with the health district, whether it's going to become controlled by the county or in the cities, or what's going to happen with that, I think that's a good prep. And like Keith was saying, kind of a planner, not just for emergency management, but kind of for the city, a policy person, right? For the city to help drafting policies, and because Keith is really ops focused. But so it doesn't give us a lot of time to focus on actual policy. Right. So that's I think I think that's something we could use this ARPA money on, is to help us with that. Just advance all of our plannings for all the different contingencies, helping us develop those scenarios out to be ready for them.
Yeah, I'm very excited about what you just said. I'm looking forward to that. And then to your point, I think one of the silver lining from all this is that we were learning as we go. So we had some great lessons learned. And God forbid we face this again. I think it'll be a warmer start than a cold start. So hopefully, that's the benefit. And then it's not just us. I think the county also learned some great lessons, the health district. Yeah. So I think, at the end of this, whenever that is, we'll have a citywide after action review to kind of capture those lessons learned and carry it forward.
Yeah, I guess my final question. Are you guys doing like a final assessment so that this is 2021, the year's not over, and you never know what's going to happen. So that just in case something else happens that's just as major as last year, we're able to at least take the lessons learned. Are you guys doing an assessment?
Yep, we will schedule one.
Okay, thanks.
Questions, comments?
It's not really a question, but it's a comment. And I shared this with Laszlo. My 95-year-old aunt in the Bronx had this is how well we did it here. 95 years old, she had an appointment to get her COVID shot at the Walgreens across from her. 95. She had to wait for 4 hours. So we did a bang-up job.
Yeah. And those large events were really every department. Public Works with the cones and helping out with lines, Parks and Rec, same thing, and DSS helping with the MAP clinic staffing. Police was a huge thing with traffic control and line management as well. and then our EMS, fire and EMS, just super, because we were vaccinating a lot of people at that time, and you had to be concerned with allergic reactions. So we had our EMS personnel there. So, and then of course Keith coordinating everything. So
For a small city, we do fantastic. Yeah. We also have the ability to cut through red tape really fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is great. Yes.
That's one question, I guess, for the whole emergency management and communication with the public. And this might be a discussion for later on about SMS notifications and not just like Facebook posts, right? But actually going to people's residents' phones.
Yeah, we have that capability.
Yeah.
But people have to sign up for it, so we have to get the word out better and help people to sign up for it. In Loudoun, they call what do they call it? Alert Loudoun. No, it's Everbridge, but they branded it pretty well and had a lot of people sign up for it. So we have to do something like that, and we're starting. And you'll see you saw it when Chris brought up the new website.
Yep.
It has that right there. So there's going to be
like a
an emergency thing. It's going to be sign up, and then you'll be able to get the text.
Well, how about the
and hopefully move away from robocalls, because I know we did the branding survey, and that was one of the complaints that came out of there. Stop the robocalls. So we want to encourage people to sign up their mobile phone and to receive.
Well, how about those? I guess there was a thunderstorm the other day. I got notification.
Yeah.
Amber alerts. I get notifications.
Yeah.
So is that on the state level?
It's a mix, yeah. So it's the major weather ones, I believe, are from the National Weather Service. We'll do that one.
Control. It's an automatic thing.
Yeah.
As soon as NWS send it out, it's going to hit your phone.
And then Amber Alert, I'm guessing that's the state police? Yeah, state police. So there are different systems.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be even a national one here coming up in September that they're going to test out. But we also have, you'll notice some of the texts from us, and they're usually repeated with the robocall. So it's something we have to grow into.
Okay.
And hopefully the new website will help us better kind of sign people up to, that's why we keep doing the robocalls. We just need more people to sign up their mobile phone, so we know you can track it whenever you send out the text. It can show how many phones you actually hit, and that they actually received it.
Are the robocalls only for landlines?
Yes. Yeah. Although, don't you receive a voicemail too? I think on your phone or your mobile.
So,
It's a call and a text.
You can get it to your landline, or you subscribe and it can go to whatever number you put down.
So you can get the robocalls on your phone as well. Yeah.
It won't actually call. It'll go to your voicemail. It won't actually ring. Yeah.
So again, you have to sign up for it. So you have to give us your.
Yeah, we need
yourself.
to market that a little better because I haven't signed up for it.
Yeah. So I'm hoping, again, the new website is emergency management notifications. Click here and there'll be sign up, right, to get alerts. And you can, in the way, again, that you can structure it once we get really high speed is you can sign up for like specific like events alert, right? So once we start doing more downtown events, you can start getting text messages on what's coming up later in the week and filter. If you don't want to hear that, then you unclick that. Or traffic alerts. There's different things you can do. We're just not there yet.
Thank you.
But that's how it was set up in Loudoun County, where you can just click through those different things.
First of all, thank you, Keith, for all the coordination and for all the departments. We're doing an excellent job with the COVID vaccinations. I had a question about COVID vaccinations. And I see citywide we're at 6,700, and I believe Delegate Rome we're around 38%. We're towards the bottom of other cities in Northern Virginia. But I'm more specifically interested in our employees. Do we know what percentage of our employees got vaccinated? And I'm particularly interested in first responders. What percentage of our employees that are first responders have been vaccinated to date?
We do track that. I don't know if you have the numbers off the top of your head.
I don't have the number, but we were tracking that pretty diligently. Given the initial, I guess, several months of the pandemic, staff had the option of getting vaccinated or not.
If I can just add to with the city thing, it's something that's very confusing, but I think a lot of it has to do with addressing and the whole system of identifying Manassas Park versus other jurisdictions and cleaning up that data, because it's not clean. I can tell you that. The other thing too is I think we're supposed to be getting updated federal data, because some people from our city may have been vaccinated somewhere else. So they're supposed to be cleaning up all that. So the numbers may be changing here.
Good.
But also it just could be more hesitancy in our city for some reason. But I think it's a factor of those three things. There probably is maybe more hesitancy from our residents, missing federal data, and then also the whole area, determining where people actually live, I think is confused in the system. And I think some people in Manassas are really Manassas Park residents, and the system is confused with residents.
So the federal data actually goes to the state level, not the locality.
Correct, but I think what they want to do is start assigning it so you can identify how many your residents are actually vaccinated.
There is also misconception, at least in the Latino community, thinking that they had to have either you had to pay for it or you had to live in Manassas Park.
So that's some more marketing,
so that
some
was,
more education.
Exactly.
Yeah, we've done it. I mean,
I'm really interested in our first responders. How many of our first responders, and if there's anything we can incentivize as a city to get them up above 50%, something we could think about. Because I know other places, Virginia, other places are incentivizing employees to get the shot, particularly our first responders. So I'd like to know what the percentage is. So if you can send us that data, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, you guys jumped. I know that.
Yeah.
Over 70%. Yeah. Police, they started off slow and they really jumped. So we got a lot more. Good. I think fire's still a little behind. I think 50%ish is where fire's at.
Send you the numbers.
Please,
Yeah.
please, thanks.
But incentives, yeah, I guess it's something we can look at. But we certainly, again, already want those who've already been vaccinated should get something as well, not just.
I hear you. More checks. So send checks around.
And in the end, it's a personal choice. It's a personal health decision.
It is.
Yeah.
But if we can incentivize them, particularly first responders, is going into homes, giving mouth to mouth, and doing other things.
Absolutely, because it's not. Yeah.
Don't they have mouth protection when they go?
Well, now they have equipment too. Also, remember with the CARES Act, so that we can put that down there. It's like a robotic kind of mouth to mouth, but regardless, it is a community health issue too. It's not just a individual thing. It's about
are you talking about the Lucas chest compression system, or are you talking?
No, I think there's something else as well from the mouth, from my understanding. Yeah, so it's something we can look at, but I'm not sure incentives are going to push.
May not.
So just from my conversation, there's just hesitancy, fear with the vaccine, but there's also some people who have seen when they've seen others who have gotten it and we're still here. You've seen an increase, but we may hit a wall at some point from people who just are committed to not getting it, and incentives may not be able to change that. But we keep trying to encourage. Again, I'm trying to kill this virus just like everyone else. I want, there's 500,000 people killed, so yeah.
Sure.
Yep.
And the whole.
Yes, Councilmember Mensing.
Can you speak about the Prince William Health District and the status and the process of separating?
I will talk about that, yeah. So it's, Keith hasn't been involved in that yet. I've assigned Randy Knights and Tony Jenkins, our budget manager, and Randy, our DSS director, to attend the county working group that they've set up. No decisions yet, but they're supposed to come out with a plan for what the next steps are, but they're supposed to come back with data on that. But I have nothing yet to report because we're taking a wait and see what do they come back with. But I have engaged also with the health district directly if we're not satisfied with what the county's coming up with, reaching out to them and getting some of the data as well directly for us for what are some other options, because we're asking for options. But there's no update. They just had one meeting so far and it was very introductory.
Okay.
So nothing to report yet.
Just to clarify, they can't dissolve it without our approval.
At least that's my understanding, because it has to have the Secretary of Health's sign off and all three jurisdictions agreeing.
Okay.
Yeah, because something would have to happen for us. Like they have to still provide that service. So I don't think so. If the county said, yeah, we want to do it, and the city said no, I don't think the state wants to set up just a separate health district for the city of Manassas, the city of Manassas Park. So at least when they were selling it to us, it was yes, each governing body has a say in the process.
So we have a veto power.
It's yes, okay. Yeah. But again, it's going to be the secretary, because the Secretary of Health could theoretically come back and say, okay, now we have to create a smaller health district. I'm not saying that's what could happen, but I think anything's possible. But we still, I think, have that ability to still have the health district if that's what we prefer.
Okay.
Yeah. But we also, again, we want to explore setting up a DSS model. Right? Where it's state funded, locally controlled, or county. But again, if it's county, I'm pushing for, I don't want like the other departments where we have no personnel supporting us and we don't hear from them. We need someone assigned to us. Right now it's a health district, so they service everyone. Once it becomes county, I don't want to go through the library thing again, but we have no say, no representation.
Right.
We have to have someone on our staff right, to help coordinate health response as well, that can be part of that team. Because there's some things that we probably don't have scale to do, right? Like the WIC service, right? So there's some mandatory services from the health department that make sense either outsourcing to the county if we each end up having our own, like a DSS model, or just keeping a health district.
We want to make sure our residents are actually serviced.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which has not always been the case.
That's not always been
Okay.
the case. Yep.
Questions, comments? Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Keith.
Thank you.
All right, so I was asked to give an overview on some specific properties, but I just want to give you an overall overview as well of what's happening in the code enforcement world. I know it's becoming a bigger priority, and with the working group also being created. So just some summary stats, and just as a background, I am flushing out an Excel. So Calvin's team does track this stuff, but I'm working with them to create a report that we can start printing out and providing to you all when Calvin does his quarterly updates, and it will list every single kind of infraction and what we're dealing with if you want to get more details. And that's kind of a work in progress that I've been meeting with the team almost every week now, and just kind of making modifications as we go. But here's just some summary stats for calendar year 2021. To date, 99 total cases, 55 closed, 44 open. So when it says closed, that means compliance. So most people do comply after kind of urging and constant communication, and 44 still ongoing. And you do see some repeat offenders, and you'll see that when you see the spreadsheet. You'll see addresses that keep popping up every year or have multiple infractions as well that you have to work with. And then 2020 cases, you can see 235 total cases, 221 closed. That's a pretty good number when you're dealing with the code enforcement world, especially with some of the legal hurdles that we have right now that I'm going to get into next. So our big initiative over the next 12 months is the code rewrite. So we met with Pat Taves, the attorney that you authorized us to contract with. We had a very good long meeting where we discussed our process, and there's some positives that came out of there. So he worked, and thank you, Dean, for the recommendation. So he worked with the county, with Fairfax County, for a long time, helping them exactly do this and deal with these kinds of difficult cases. So he's laid out some good strategies for how we can actually get court injunctions in place to essentially require residents to comply or do the repairs or do other things, other remedies that right now is not clear cut. So that's there's a lot to look at though. And he is taking I think a month-long vacation, and so it may take some time for him to get back to us, but that's an ongoing thing over the summer in the fall. The timeline again is to get initial kind of strategy by early September, and with some of those things that we need to change in our code to allow us to take that process. But it was a great first meeting. It was a great background about how things were done in Fairfax County and in other areas as well, and what we could evaluate to help out our process. But I will say it's likely going to require then additional spending on legal services for people to represent us in court to get these court injunctions. So that's going to be another process as well as this moves forward. Software implementation, just like parking, right? We had to implement Encode to help us out with. So here I put the software implementation tentative for December completion for case tracking and reporting. So it won't be that Excel file. Eventually it's going to be a good dashboard, good reporting tool to make it easier versus still, right now we're working off of Excel. We're implementing a software to enhance code enforcement's ability to track. But eventually if we go also to a ticketing system as well for certain infractions, we're going to then have to either integrate code enforcement with Tyler Encode for what police utilizes or something like that as well. So that'll be a follow-up software implementation. But we had to do the code rewrite first. We had to do that strategy first, understand what the roadmap is for how we're going to tackle these issues. But it certainly is a starting point. We at least need to have a good data analytics tool, and that's what we're working on. Chris has been working on. Intended completion is December for that one. And then, as discussed earlier, with the FY22 budget, onboarding some part-time support to assign for specific sweeps of specific areas, and also joint operations. That's something we talked about now with the parking enforcement officer who was brought on board this week. So that was exciting. We're going to want the parking enforcement officer and the code enforcement officer to actually do joint operations. There's just different things that in one property, there'll be violations that both can resolve, but through their different methods. So it makes sense for them to kind of do joint operations as well. So those are kind of the big things coming up to enhance our ability to ramp up enforcement. But the step one, that code analysis and change in strategy is really going to be the most critical for us. But you can see already, again, with 2020, the majority of cases that we engage with people, they do close. Now, I will say one issue is sometimes they comply and then a month later they're back to violating again. And that's again where you're going to want to continue to build a case, right? That to bring forward but this isn't an easy thing to resolve. Again, you have to go before a judge, and you have to build a good case for something like that for a repeat offender. So for specific properties, so vacant houses, all of these are, except for 276, ignore that one, but 127, Alpine all the way down, they all are up to date on their taxes. They haven't abandoned their house, right? But they're no longer living in their homes. So 276 Mosby, that was the exception there. That one was demolished on April 13th, as you all remember, and the treasurer is in the process of putting a lien on that property, potentially moving into a tax sale as well. 127 Alpine Drive, tentative for grass cutting for tomorrow. Has that been confirmed? Okay, so grass should be cut tomorrow from, we work at our contractor, and we'll get our building inspector out there to analyze the back of that house for those holes. Those holes will likely need to be boarded up, but what will need to be determined is any major structural issues. So there's holes in people's homes. That doesn't mean it's an imminent threat of collapse. And remember that's what's required for the demolition. Repair, though, is something that we're going to start, again, with that code rewrite, evaluating for getting a court injunction to require the property owner to do the repair. And hopefully we can start coordinating them with some of these housing resources to help them get the dollars to do the repair themselves. And then as a very, very last case, through that legal process, then the city itself doing the repairs and putting a lien. But again, before we spend taxpayer money on this, we want to get the owner to comply with the repairs and hopefully seek out support of the housing department if that's an option. So that's the latest with 127 Alpine Drive. Again, at the very least, it's going to have to be boarded up. 127 Courtney, notice violations sent on May 18th. And this one, I'm not going to go into details on the owner because there are some medical issues there. But there is a contact who did reach out, who's working on securing ownership of the property and getting landscaping, grass cutting done, hopefully over the next week. But this one has a strange kind of legal twist to it as well that doesn't make it clear cut. But there is no visible structural disrepair, at least that we're able to see from the public right of way. 126 Kent, we removed the tire that was there and the notice of violation sent for the grass. And again, a lot of these with grass, again, we're going to keep encouraging them. If they don't do it again, then we end up cutting it and putting a lien on their property. Madera Court, this one is interesting also because I believe in this one, the condo association is the one who's supposed to be cutting the grass. They haven't returned our calls, but we still left the door hanger on June 10th, and the notice of violation is going to be sent this week to both the owner and the condo association. In reality, from our understanding, it's the responsibility of the condo association to cut that grass. And then 9311 Lindsay Lane, notice violation sent May 25th. Here's the other thing with notice violations. We have to get confirmation from the U.S. Postal Service that the person has received the mail. That's what starts the timeline. We don't get that. That's when we essentially tape on their door the notice to let them know that stops or starts the clock. So this gives them 60 days to make the structural repairs, and then after that, again, we'll go from there from legal recourses. But I think that's where we need the best help is once we get to that point and we have to go to court. That's where we need that new strategy for how to be successful in the court, and that's what we're working on as well. It's not going to work if we don't have that. And again, right now, so none of the above properties, except of course 276, which is already demolished, were an imminent threat of collapse. That's what has to be determined before we can demolish. 127 Alpine again needs some further analysis on those, the rear structure. But again, the likely future strategy will be court injunction to require the owner to make the repair, and that's a civil process. However, violation of the injunction then is a violation of the court order, right? And then that you can be held in contempt for that. So that's likely going to be the route that we're going, but I don't want to say that's for certain until we get back from the consultant on what the next steps are, and it's reviewed by team and staff before we bring that back to you all. So that's the update, but again, hopefully by next quarter, our report to you all will be ready listing every property, so you get a good feel for what's going on. So.
Thank you very much. Are there any comments or questions?
Thank you for giving this update, because this is what citizens they actually come and knock on my door. And it's true, I had someone come this morning at 8:30 in the morning to knock. Yeah, people know where I live. I don't mind answering questions. And especially the one on 127 Alpine, thank you very much, because they're the family that lives next door. There are small children. And I've actually been there, and like I said, mentioned before, it's really not very safe. Regarding the Madera Court, the HOA didn't even answer my phone calls. They haven't answered the next door neighbor that lives next door to it, hasn't answered their phone calls either. So there's a trend there. But I thank you for pulling this together.
Yeah, associations are difficult to deal with when they're not responsible. It gets a little tricky on how you end up going after them.
Yeah, Lazo, thank you for the presentation. In addition to the recommendations for changing our code that the attorney is providing, is he also providing I guess it's tips on documentation? So if we go to court,
a copy of the example of the notice of violation that we send, and also the door hangers. He's going to look at all that and just look at all of our documentation.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions?
Yes, so it's the code enforcement going to look at the comprehensive plan? In other words, we're not just looking at the houses, we're also looking at, like, for instance, yard sales that are happening on the west side. Because from what I understand, there's only 2 yard sales you can have during the year.
Yeah, I think that's a permit that the treasurer issues. Right now, we're more focused on, so we provided specific chapters. It's something, again, this should be an ongoing thing as we want to evaluate issues, but we provided some of the major ones right now, such as proper storage of equipment or furniture outside. That's a big violation we see across the grass issue, abandoned vehicles, trailers that are just abandoned, clearly abandoned. Those are the priorities that we want to first focus on, because those are the majority of violations that we're seeing. So that's what we're asking them to focus on. That doesn't mean that's where we have to stop. We can then keep going beyond that. But we want to tackle it's kind of the 2080 rule, right?
Gotcha.
We want to tackle those issues that are taking up 80% of our cases in the general.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have an update on the 2 part-time code enforcement? Do we have any prospects or?
Advertise. We've been first focused on the transportation program because we have we have some incredible candidates. And last time we advertised for a transportation planner, we didn't get. So we really want to jump and make sure we're able to recruit someone for that. But we have advertised but right now Calvin's busy with the interview process for the transportation and still the building official. Remember, you guys approved that in the budget amendment. We have not been successful in recruiting that position, so we've evaluated different contingencies that will have to come back to you all, whether it's contracted support for the official component and maybe doing it just in a commercial inspector, right? Because the building inspector that we have right now is more for residential. So perhaps just going to a commercial building inspector and then having contracted support to help out Calvin with the building officials. So the plan review stuff, the commercial plans that Calvin has to review, at least to ease that. That's more of an expensive option. That's why we're trying to recruit building officials. But right now, there's more demand than there is supply for building officials. So that's how it is for certain positions. Very hard to recruit. But those have been kind of the first steps. But we have HR has already advertised for the part-time person. So that's kind of next thing.
I'm very excited about the transportation staffer.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have some great candidates, so that's very exciting.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
Yeah.
Questions, comments?
No, thank you.
Yeah, I got a question. I'm excited about the consultant that we're bringing on board. Ask him if, I know, me and Dean, we were going back and forth a couple months back about taking over the property, but not through eminent domain.
Condemnation?
No, it's a different term where we could take over the property if it's been vacant and abandoned. That the city has a right to take over. And I'll remember when we came up with that conclusion it was like maybe last year, but if this consultant has any experience in that.
It's something we can look at. I will say again, the attorney kind of expresses the same of what I've heard from Calvin and everyone who's brought these things to courts. Yeah. The judges are very, very hesitant.
Yeah.
They're a lot of times they're going to be on the property owner's side, so you have to have a very good case.
Well, that's what, because I don't know how Baltimore is doing it right now. They just the whole city of Baltimore took over a lot of vacant properties and just redeveloped it.
It could be Maryland,
or sold it even to an investor. Maryland is doing that too.
No, I'm saying it could be authorized by Maryland and perhaps not by.
Oh, you're saying the state.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then who knows if the judges in Maryland are less about, because they are, usually when you become a very large city, there are some more communal impacts to everything. Right. So you may have judges who are then more willing to deal with these things, whereas in
smaller cities,
rural areas, there seems to be at least more leaning towards kind of property rights, and you have to have a very good case built up.
Sort of like the difference in eminent domain law across the country and how it's viewed when you take it to court. Okay.
It's just going to be different. It's all going to depend on what Virginia allows, but we can ask.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the follow-up question is that the tax payment on these houses, does the treasurer know the source of it? Is it coming from the lender or from the individual homeowner?
We can ask.
Yeah. Because this was another thing we talked about, is that if these have liens, if the lender is making payments, you can simply contact the lender. They don't know the situation of the house, but if they find out that it's been vacant, they actually will take over the house.
Oh, the lender will.
The lender will, yeah, because that's their property technically, if there is a lien on the house though.
That's usually in the deed of trust, though, that spells that out.
Well, yeah, mostly, commonly, I mean, it will have that verbiage in there. A lot of lenders have that. They actually revert back to the lender, and then they take care of it either through a sale, contact investors, or whatever they do, an auction.
The deed says if you vacate the house, but you're...
And if it's in disrepair.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, you contact these lenders, they find out about it, then it's basically, they take action literally within 30 days.
Yeah. We have seen the market taking care of a few houses already. High price or
home sales, yeah.
But the problem is a lot of these owners don't want to sell.
Yeah.
That's always fascinating when we're going over some of these cases.
Right. So that's why it's interesting, because if you find a source of where the tax payments are coming from, and especially if it's from a lender, then you can find that from court records, and you can contact them directly.
Yeah. Well, the treasurer will know. So
that's what I'm saying.
Reach out to the person.
And then they could take action from there. And my last question, sorry, the other one was the junk on the lawns and the tires. I know the email from Mr. Smith. These are already in code already in the city.
Yeah. It's just how you enforce.
It's just enforcing is the problem we're having.
It's if they don't comply, and you have to then.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking this code rewrite, I guess, what would be rewriting?
The history was that the city would take egregious cases.
Yeah.
Where the whole lawn was covered in trash, and they lost the case. So again, it's helping us. What is the best method? And also changing things from criminal penalties to the civil injunction process. That's at least the initial inclination from just evaluating our current process. But again, I want to give him time to do the full.
Of course,
Those were the initial conversations.
Right.
Is avoiding the criminal side.
Right.
That's some judges really don't want to do.
Okay.
And going more the civil injunction side.
And then he's going to outline actually the enforcement, the second part of it, right? We could rewrite the code, but how are we going to enforce it?
That's what I'm talking about. That's where you're going to need legal support.
I see.
Right? So the code enforcement officer is going around, they're identifying or getting calls about violations.
Right.
They're leaving door hangers or education. Right. That's usually what We don't want to be heavy-handed, so we like to talk to people and say, hey, even police will do this for parking violations. Like if they're there, can you move your car? Right, before just going ahead and ticketing them. We like to encourage people to just comply with the law. That's the goal. It's not to punish people, but to get them to comply with the law. So we talk to them first, we try to convince them, we leave the door hanger with information, and if they just don't comply, then we send a notice of violation. That starts the process. But right now, again, it's a misdemeanor for a lot of these cases, and so that's what we have to reevaluate, whether that's the best route to go.
I see.
I've got one more question.
Yes, go ahead.
I just thought, I do get sometimes concerns from citizens in Blooms. So this isn't just a West Side issue, right? So 235 total cases in 2020, 99 in 21. How much of these are from the Blooms part of the city?
I'd have to do that
percentage-wise, would you estimate?
That's what our new software, though, again, because it's going to be aligned with GIS. We're actually now just like PD can show you parking infractions and and you can see that they're across the city.
Okay.
That's the goal with this as well, to come back to you all and show you where all these infractions are happening on a map, give you a good dashboard, right? So just more analytical tools that we just don't have right now. We're literally just plugging it into an Excel file.
As long as I know this isn't exclusive for just one side of the city.
And if you look at the vacant homes, 4 are West Side, 1 is Central, 1 is in the Blooms Crossing area.
I have a quick question. I don't know when this, I know it was before you were here, but there used to be, the code enforcement used to send us, like, when you were in violation of the grass, for instance, they used to send you a ticket. They used to send you like a invoice.
With a fine?
With a fine.
Do you remember that? Well, how's that done?
We had a ticket, but again, the city can't actually make someone owe us money for civil infractions. That can only be decided by a judge. So just like a speeding ticket, by coming in and paying that ticket, you're acknowledging guilt and voluntarily paying the fine. We weren't having a lot of response to those tickets. I think at one point in time, finance asked my former boss how many tickets were out there. It was around $6,000 in tickets we had issued, and yet we only collected several $100s. Because ultimately, if you don't pay the ticket, there is no penalty other than we can still drag you into court and let a judge decide if you should owe the money. But there wasn't a lot of voluntary compliance with the ticket system. And I was challenged by, I think Dean took a look at the tickets. We had some discussions with the prosecuting attorney. They didn't really feel like the ticket we were using was gonna hold up in court. So most recently, we looked at Manassas' ticketing system, which is formatted more like a speeding ticket. Something you would get for a speeding citation, where you're acknowledging guilt or choosing your day in court. And we looked at that, and that's how we wound up here, because that's the process we were in, was moving towards a different type of ticketing system. That was when we decided to bring in a consultant and see if we were doing this the right way.
And again, like I said, just like with our system, police system, it shares information with the courts. That's what you're gonna have to get to as well. So you're gonna have some kind of software that will do that when they issue the ticket.
Any questions or comments? Okay, thank you very much. Do you have anything else for manager's report? Okay. We have no closed session, so is there anything else for the good of the city? Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Motion carries. We're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.